Season 1 of Riverdale was all about solving the mystery of who killed Jason Blossom. And if you want to watch me try to solve that mystery, you can go watch that video on my channel. But this video is about solving the mystery in Season 2 of Riverdale. In the Season 1 finale of Riverdale, we got a brand new mystery. And that mystery rockets us into Season 2. Archie's dad, Fred, is shot during a robbery at the local soda shop, Pops. So while I have not watched Season 2 of Riverdale yet, I believe that means that we have another mystery on our hands. This is not a recap of the second season of Riverdale. This is me watching the show for the very first time and trying to solve the big mystery before the show reveals it. So after every couple episodes that I watch, I'm going to jump in here and break down the different suspects, theories, and clues that I have for who I think is it. And I will lock in a prediction of who I think did it. That way, when we get to the end of the video and we find out who done it, we can look back and see exactly how close or how far I was from getting it right. And I've gotten a lot of suggestions in my comments of having some sort of indicator when I have locked in a suspect. And so I will be adding this locked in card on whoever I lock in as my prediction for that section. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump into Season 2 of Riverdale and see if we can solve the mystery before the reveal.
Our story continues.
Some crazy person is going after the people that I care about.
Before we jump into Season 2 of Riverdale, I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Casetify. This is my first time using a Casetify phone case, and I'm honestly blown away. The amount of unique designs that they have with high quality phone cases that I can trust with my phone is incredible. By the way, if you stick around to the end of this sponsored segment, I will give you a code that will get you a discount. Here are some of the Casetify phone cases that I have gotten, and I've partnered up with Casetify to show off how these cases are more than just phone cases. They're about self-expression and creativity. This is the one that I use the most. It's the crime scene kind of detective vibe, and the art style is a little bit more me, so I use it more day to day. And Casetify has more than just phone cases. They also have accessories. Like I have this one on my phone, this one's mine, and I actually got this one for my wife. And what I really love about Casetify is it makes me feel the way I did, like the way that the world felt when I was younger. Like before we went through this weird minimalist phase of like life, used to like everything you owned had some sort of like self-expression printed all over it. Like your folders at school, like your binders, your bag, your phone cases. Everything had some sort of art style or character that you could show off the things that you liked. And Casetify really brings that back. You can show off your interests front and center on a device that you have with you at all times. They have major collabs with Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, Batman. That's the one I got because, well, I like Batman. But my favorite thing that Casetify does is the artist collaborations. Casetify partners with and supports independent artists with their own signature lines. And with these custom collections, they released constant new designs and art. That's what this one is, by the way, the kind of crime scene one. That's from their artist collection. Oh, and you can even make custom phone cases, which is really fun. I made this one that just says subscribe, so, you know, do what the phone case says. I really love what Casetify is doing. I love that they're working with artists to create art on canvases that everyone on the planet has on them at all times. And you can check my description for a link that will get you 15% off. That is excluding the collab cases though. But you can show off your style just like me. Thank you Casetify for sponsoring this video. Let's jump back in to Riverdale Season 2.
Veronica.
Daddy?
Daddy?
Don't you think I want everything to go back to the way it was?
We are back in the world of Riverdale, baby. It's been too long. It's been almost a half of a year since we watched Riverdale Season 1. And I've been dying to keep watching because I really, really love this show. And now we have a brand new mystery to solve. I just finished watching episode 1 of Season 2. And we are on the search for the Black Hood. If you don't remember from the season 1 finale of Riverdale, a man in a black hood goes into Pop's restaurant diner thing and shoots Archie's dad, Fred Andrews. Now, this whole episode is about the after effects of what happens at the end of season 1. Like, Archie rushes him to the hospital. Fred eventually wakes up and he is okay. But we have a big question. And we is us, but it's also Jughead and Betty and Archie and Veronica, the whole Archie gang, really. Because Jughead is not convinced that this was just a random robbery. Jughead thinks that this was a hit. And I agree, mostly because of a lot of the stuff we learn in this episode. But before we start breaking down the different suspects and theories that I have, let's break down the different clues that we have seen in this episode and the season 1 finale that could help us solve the case. First things first, Fred's wallet is missing. Now that's very interesting. After Fred was shot, the Black Hood held the gun to Archie's head, and Archie's eyes were just shut closed. He was scared. I don't blame him. And at some time in that moment when his eyes were closed and when he heard the door open and the Black Hood ran away, Fred's wallet was taken. So that's interesting. Chase, you keep saying that's interesting. Why is it that interesting? If he's a robber, he was robbing. That's what robbers do. But here's the thing. He didn't take any cash or any money from the cash register at the diner. So if you're going into a diner to rob the place, why would you not take the money from the place and only take the wallet that might have had some money in it from some guy that you shot? Archie does a police lineup where he tries to identify the man in the Black Hood, but none of them have the glowing green eyes that he looked into when that guy shot his dad. And Archie makes it very clear to the sheriff, that's this guy, Sheriff Keller, this is not a ski mask. It is a handmade black hood with the eye holes cut out by hand. And the sheriff, he just thinks it's probably a robbery. But I'm not so sure, and neither is Jughead. And Veronica also thinks that it might not have been a robbery. Because two things happen right before Fred gets shot. Fred, the guy who got shot, and Veronica's mom, Hermione, and by extension, Veronica's dad, Hiram, they are all business partners in Fred's construction company. If you want the backstory on that whole storyline, you can go watch the season 1 video. Well, right before Fred got shot, the Lodges tried to buy Fred out of the company, but he refused. And that was right before he got shot, you know? So that leads Veronica to think that maybe her mom or dad hired a hit out on Fred. And the reason that she thinks that her mom might have gotten a hit out on Fred is because her dad will be coming home soon. And it's really put Hermione on edge. Hiram's been in jail this whole time, by the way. And to make matters even more complicated, Hermione was kind of dating Fred while her husband was in jail. So, you know. Now, the second thing that happened right before Fred got shot was the construction company that Fred and Hermione, and by extension Hiram, are all, business partners with. They fired all of the Southside Serpents who were working for the construction company. If you don't know who the Southside Serpents are, they are a biker gang in the south side of Riverdale. Jughead's dad is a part of them. Yeah, that's really all you need to know. They're kind of public enemy number 1 in town right now because back in season 1, the truth that Clifford Blossom, that is Cheryl's dad, spoiler alert for season 1, if you haven't watched that video or seen season 1 of Riverdale, her dad is the one who killed her twin brother, and it was all over this drug empire thing. And the Southside Serpents were a big part of that drug empire thing. So they're kind of public enemy number 1. And so what had happened was Hermione fired all of them, which she did without Fred's permission, but he kind of understood because it's like, okay, they are known criminals. We're trying to do business right now. And Hermione's husband, who is a known criminal, will be coming back from jail. And so he can't associate with any known Outside Serpents. in a legitimate business. I also mentioned FP, that's Jughead's dad. He's like a major member of the Southside Serpents, and he's actually in jail right now for his participation in cleaning up the murder of Jason Blossom, who was killed by his dad, Clifford Blossom. But that's last season's mystery, brother. This is about the new mystery. So even though I went on a little detour explaining some stuff from last season, it's not going to happen again because we're moving on. The whole reason I brought that stuff up was because a lot of the Southside Serpents were fired from Fred's company right before Fred was shot. So Jughead thinks that maybe it was a Southside Serpent who had a grudge against Fred for being fired that might have shot him. And well, the Serpents have kind of made Jughead an honorary serpent because his dad went to jail, didn't snitch on anyone. So now they're like, we look out for you, Jughead, because you're family, because your dad's family. And Jughead even gets one of those like badass Southside Serpent leather jackets. It's pretty sick. So Jughead sends the Southside Serpents searching for the one who might have tried to assassinate Fred. I tried to do as many S's as I could in that, but Fred starts with an F. They end up finding a guy who was running his mouth claiming to be the one that shot Fred. Turns out he was just full of it. He wasn't actually the one that shot Fred. And that brings us to the biggest moment of this episode, and the most important clue, which is leading us in the direction of the identity of the Black Hood. At the end of episode 1, we see Miss Grundy! Where are my Grundy heads at? If you don't know, Miss Grundy is the teacher / abuser of young Archie Andrews. She was his music teacher, and they had a relationship. She's a grown woman. He's a teenager. She was grooming Archie, baby. This isn't your mama's Riverdale. Turns out she is in the town of Greendale. It's like a town close by to Riverdale, right across from Sweetwater River. And she's up to her old tricks, brother. She's got a young student at her house, and they start kissing. But then, after the new boy toy leaves her house, the man in the black hood sneaks into her house and kills her, dude. Now we've got a whole new element at play. This guy's a serial killer. But why? This is so interesting because so far the people that we have seen him try and kill or actually kill are two people directly related to Archie Andrews, his dad, and the teacher who was grooming him. So now my brain's racing, right? Because like, what's this dude's deal? Is he a vigilante? I could see why he would kill someone who was preying on school children. But what did Archie's dad do that justified being vigilantified? And you can't tell me that it's just random coincidence because they're both related to Archie in a pretty significant way. Plus, there's this really chilling sentence that Pop, he's the guy that owns Pop's Diner, he says about the man in the black hood. He says, I've seen robbers, but this guy, this was as if the angel of death has come to Riverdale. Whoa, pretty wild, huh? So this helps us out, but also not that much. What it helps us with is we're not just looking for someone who has a reason to want to shoot Fred, right? Like the Southside Serpents who were fired, or Hermione Lodge, because he wouldn't let them buy him out of his company. We are looking for someone who would want to kill Fred and Miss Grundy. And that narrows down our search. So, who is our suspects? Hiram Lodge is back in town. He shows up in the last few moments of the episode. I was surprised to see it's the dude from that morning show with his wife Kelly. That was like Regis and Kelly. Well, now it's Kelly and her husband, Hiram Lodge. That's not the actor's name. I can't remember the actor's name, but it's this guy. It's very shocking to see that. I don't know if any of you even understand what I just said, but your moms probably know. Your moms know this guy because they're watching him every morning, probably. They still have cable TV, which moms do. Anyway, he's like some sort of godfather crime lord. Hiram, not the actor that's on the morning show. That I know of. But yeah, he's always a potential suspect because he's like the godfather. You know what I mean? But I don't understand why he would want to kill Miss Grundy. You know? Doesn't seem to relate to him whatsoever. Same for the Serpents, especially FP. He would never try and kill Fred. They're like childhood best friends. And he's currently in jail, which means, can't be him. So who does that even leave us with, suspect-wise? Well, this is Cheryl, if you don't remember. Cheryl burned down her family's mansion, and her mom ran back in to save a portrait, and she got covered with terrible burns. Plus, Cheryl's dad is dead, so the whole Blossom family kind of off the table. Cheryl herself was saved by Archie. He punched through the ice like Superman and pulled her out of the frozen over river. It's pretty badass. And you know what? That's what's so great about Riverdale. This show is like a conglomeration, a mashup. It's like a mashup of all of your favorite stuff. It's like Twin Peaks, right? And as much as it's like Twin Peaks, pretty obviously, it's also like Smallville. You know, it's like a small town Superman story. Archie is a young Clark Kent who punches holes in frozen solid ice to save people. And, you know, Betty is a reporter at the local newspaper, just like Lois Lane. It's sick, dude. This is some good stuff. But back to the question at hand, who would shoot Fred and then run off to a different town and kill Miss Grundy? A hired killer? Or is this someone we know? If I'm being completely honest, the mask kind of shows a lot of this guy's face. Like, you can see his eyes, his eyebrows, a little bit under his eyes. There's a lot to be seen. And I don't think we've met anyone that looks like that guy. But this could also be like teen drama magic. You know what I mean? Where it's just a plot device and this guy takes off his mask and it's fucking Betty or something. And you're like, Betty doesn't look like that. Speaking of Betty, this is my only real theory at this point. It's only one episode. Okay, cut me a break. There's a lot to learn, and the majority of this episode was just the aftermath of Fred getting shot. So I'm working with minimum suspect clue theoryism. But my theory comes from something that does not happen in this episode. It actually happens in the season 1 finale. We find out that Betty's parents had a baby in high school, and Betty's dad, who's this guy, kind of forced them to put it up for adoption. This is Betty's mom, Alice Cooper. Not that Alice Cooper. Now, what this means is that Betty has a secret older brother somewhere out there in the world, and he would be in like his mid-20s at this point. And when she tells her friends about this secret older brother that's out there somewhere in the world, Veronica says he's a blonde Adonis, no doubt. Now, could this secret older brother be the one who's back in Riverdale, this time as a killer? Now, Chase, why would he target people that Archie knows? Why wouldn't he target the family that abandoned him and put him up for adoption? I have no clue. This is all I've got right now. And since that's all I've really got right now, it's kind of what I got to go with. So that's what I'm going to lock in as my prediction for this episode of Riverdale, who I think the Black Hood is. I'm going to lock in my prediction of it's Betty's secret older brother that we have not met or even know if he's going to show up. But he's kind of the only thing we got. And since we haven't seen him and he's not on the board yet, I can't really put the little locked in postcard on him. So yeah, you're just going to have to go on this ride with me. Hope for the best. All right, that's who I'm locking in for episode 1, who I think Black Hood Killer is. I'm very, very excited to keep watching the show. Let's go watch the next few episodes and then jump back in here.
This was a crime of passion.
Don't you think I want everything to go back to the way it was?
My dad is facing 20 years.
Some crazy person is going after the people that I care about.
Riverdale, all new episode next Wednesday at 8/7 Central.
Oh, hello. What's up? It's just me. Part of the Southside Serpents. We're misunderstood. You wouldn't get it. I just watched episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5 of season 2 of Riverdale. And I know that sounds like a lot, but we haven't even scratched the surface, brother. When we've got 22 total episodes to watch, the first 5 feel like nothing. We could get 15 episodes in and something could happen that changes all of my current theories. That's why we've got to be thinking 18 steps ahead, just like a Southside Serpent would do, because we're awesome and totally badass. We need to be the greatest detectives on the internet if we are going to solve this season before the reveal. So let's get into it. The Black Hood has been extremely active in these few episodes. So let's just start with breaking down everything that he has done so far. Starting with probably the wildest crime that we have seen in this entire show. Sorry, the leather jacket got pretty hot. It's the middle of summer. But like I said, craziest crime we've seen so far. This is Moose and Midge. We did meet Moose last season. This is his girlfriend, Midge. They're sitting in their car at Lover's Lane, and they do a little bit of the jingle jangle. That is the drug in Riverdale. It looks like pixie sticks. It's like the little pixie sticks, and they go, ah, just like that. Clip that. Put that everywhere. They're making out. Man in the black hood shows up. He walks up to the car and just unloads a bunch of shots into this car. And by shots, I mean bullets. It's very reminiscent of the scene in the movie Zodiac. And so basically what I'm trying to say is Black Hood is giving off Zodiac energy. But the parallels between the Black Hood and Zodiac, the Zodiac killer from the movie Zodiac, is also a real historical event. The parallels do not end there. There are other similarities we will get to in a minute. But for right now, you should know that Moose survives. And Midge didn't even get hit. Moose's body kind of shielded her from all the bullets. He was like, pop, pop, pop. He did pull through. He is alive. The Black Hood sends Betty's mom, Alice, a letter. Now remember, Betty's parents run the Riverdale newspaper. It's called the Riverdale Register. And this is what the letter says. This is the Black Hood. I am the one who shot the adulterer at Pops. I killed the child predator in Greendale. I shot the drug and sex-addicted teenagers at Lover's Lane. Riverdale is not innocent. It is a town of hypocrites and degenerates and criminals. My wrath is the price of your lies, your secrets, your sins. I will not stop. I cannot be stopped. I am the wolf. You are the flock. This is the bloodletting. You will hear from me again. And then, to prove that it is actually him, the Black Hood killer, and not just a copycat sending in a fake letter, he includes Fred's wallet and Miss Grundy's sunglasses. So this is pretty insane. I mean, we've got a full-on vengeful psychopath in Riverdale. And what's super fascinating to me is that we finally learned what the connection between Fred and Miss Grundy is, other than just Archie, right? Because in the letter, the Black Hood says that Fred is an adulterer, which I'm going to be totally honest here. I don't think Fred really is an adulterer. Fred was long divorced by the time he was dating Veronica's mom. Technically, Hermione is the one committing adultery. If we're getting specific, Fred is just a homewrecker. So, if we're getting specific. Anyway, we understand why he was shot now. The serial killer thinks that he's just cleaning up Riverdale by taking out sinners. Fred, who was dating a married woman, Grundy, who was abusing children, and Moose and Midge, who were doing drugs and at Lover's Lane. I'm gonna be honest with you, not all of these crimes feel equal in my eyes. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a serial killer on the search for sinners to get vengeance. Not anymore. Someone's gonna clip that and be like, is Chase the Zodiac killer? I wasn't even born then, guys. I wasn't even born then. Which is the perfect alibi. Alright, back to what the Black Hood is up to. Not long after Alice gets the message from the Black Hood for her to publish in the newspaper, Betty also gets a letter from the Black Hood. Betty is the editor of the school newspaper, but Betty's letter from the Black Hood feels a little bit more personal. Betty, your words at the Jubilee inspired me. The town's sinners must show their contrition. If not, there will be bloodshed. Enclosed is a cipher. It details where I will punish the next sinner. It is a test. Only you may solve it, Betty. I'm going to Google what contrition means. The state of feeling remorseful and penitent. I'm going to Google what penitent means. Feeling or showing sorrow and regret for having done wrong. Repentant. I'm going to Google sorrow. A feeling of deep distress caused by loss, disappointment, or other misfortune suffered by oneself or others. I'm going to Google oneself. That was a fun bit. We had a good time. For some context, Betty did a giant speech at the town's Jubilee. When Jason Blossom's killer was revealed to be his father, Clifford Blossom, and Jughead's dad, FP, got arrested as well, Betty's speech was very inspiring to the town because she talked about how the town needed to stop lying to itself. Everyone wanted to blame FP for the death of Jason Blossom because he is a Southsider. He is a serpent. He's a part of that biker gang. He is scum. But it was actually one of Riverdale's best and brightest founding families. One of the most influential and good people in the town of Riverdale, Clifford Blossom, killing his own son over the drug empire that he has been running in Riverdale for decades. And apparently this speech that Betty gave about how Riverdale needed to stop lying to itself, it inspired the Black Hood. And now the Black Hood wants to start exposing the hypocrites and the sinners. Now, that was not quite the message that Betty was giving out. You know, she wasn't saying go kill everyone who's lying, you know. But this does help us. It gives us a major clue. Whoever the Black Hood is was at the town's Jubilee, which helps us a little bit because what most of the people in the town think, including Archie, they believe that the Black Hood is someone from the South Side, potentially a South Side serpent, because the rivalry between the North Side of Riverdale and the South Side of Riverdale have been at war for a very long time. It's kind of that classic, the nice side of town versus the rough side of town. Riverdale High is all about milkshakes and cheer practice, and Southside High, where Jughead is now going to school, is full of gang activity and drugs, like the Jingle Jangle. It was like a class warfare kind of thing. Anyway, Betty solves the cipher that the Black Hood put into the letter to her by using the Nancy Drew secret code book. Now, this Nancy Drew secret code activity book it's a book that Betty used to check out from the library all the time when she was a kid. And remember, this cipher was made specifically for Betty. Only she would be able to solve it because only she, checked out that Nancy Drew book constantly as a child. The cipher says, "I will strike next where it all began." And that leads Betty and Jughead to the same auditorium where Betty's speech was given during the Jubilee. The speech that inspired the Black Hood. Well, that night that Betty and Jughead figure out the cipher just so happens to be a giant town hall meeting in that same auditorium. So Betty and Jughead run and they bust down the door and they're trying to warn everyone, hey, the Black Hood is about to be here. And so they pull the fire alarm, everyone evacuates, and that is where the Black Hood calls Betty on the phone for the very first time. Betty asks him, "Were you at the town hall tonight?" "Yes." "But you didn't hurt anyone?" "No. Tonight was all about you." Then he goes on a bit of a rant where he's like, "I want to set Riverdale on the righteous path. Get rid of the sinners, like your sister. I know about the sin she carries in her womb. I also know she's at a farm 2 hours north." Basically, if you don't remember from season 1, Betty's sister Polly, she is pregnant with Jason Blossom's twins. Jason Blossom being the one who died last season. That's who the whole mystery was about. But then we find out that the Coopers and the Blossoms, so Betty's family and Cheryl's family, are actually the same family. They just split apart, and one half of the family changed their last name to Cooper. So that would mean that Polly and Jason Blossom are cousins. The babies are incest. That's why the Black Hood is saying that she has, how did he put it? The sin she carries in her womb. That's why he's saying it's a sin. And basically he's threatening Betty. Do what I say, or I'm going to go to where your sister is up north and kill her. And boy, oh boy, does it get pretty intense after that. He ends up calling Betty again. This time with something that he wants her to publish in the school paper. And they end up making a deal. Every time that Betty does what he asks her to, she can ask him one question that he has to answer. So he published what the Black Hood wanted her to publish, which was an expose on her own mother, Alice. And the picture on the front page was her mugshot from when she was a teenager. And the headline reads, Alice Cooper's Serpent Past. Basically exposing how Alice is actually from the South Side. She was a part of the South Side Serpents even. But now she's a North Sider and she acts all holier than thou. He then tells Betty, the Black Hood, tells Betty that she needs to cut off Veronica, her best friend, or else he will kill her for her sins and her father's sins in which she has been a part of. So that's what Betty does. She goes off on Veronica at a little party and just says some really hurtful things, stuff that would definitely end a friendship. I won't get into the details, but it was essentially Veronica is a snobby bitch who's only friends with us because she's stuck here. And so since she cuts off Veronica, she gets to ask the Black Hood a question. What will make you stop? And he says, you, as long as you do what I say. This is wild stuff, dude. Then he tells her that she needs to cut off Jughead, her boyfriend, the love of her life. So this is obviously very difficult, but she has to do it in order to protect Jughead and her sister and everybody. So she asks Archie if Archie will break up with Jughead for her. This leads us to a pretty devastating scene where Archie shows up to Jughead's house right as Jughead's about to get initiated into the Southside Serpents. And Archie just loses his mind over this because in his mind, the Southside Serpents probably who the Black Hood is a part of, and they're just like the scum of the earth. They're criminals, you know? And I've been talking about Betty for most of this, but Archie has been on his own odyssey throughout these episodes, and a lot of that journey involves the Southside Serpents. For example, one of them pulled a knife on him. Archie pulled a gun on them. To get back at him, they show up at his house while the football team's there, which leads to this the Outsiders style rumble where they're just fighting each other out in the middle of nowhere. So Archie, not the biggest fan of the Southside Serpents, and now his best friend in the world is joining them? How could he? Now, realistically, Jughead is joining the Southside Serpents for two major reasons. The first being his father, FP, was the leader of the Southside Serpents. So Jughead is kind of grandfathered in. And they've been protecting him at school, especially after he got jumped by a rival gang at school called the Ghoulies. And second, Jughead finds out that his father as the leader was what was keeping peace between the Serpents and the Northsiders. So Jughead feels a responsibility to step up and be that leader who can keep that peace between the South Side and the North Side. Because his dad's in jail, you know? His dad's not there to do it. Anyway, after cutting off Jughead, Betty gets to ask the Black Hood another question. She asks who he is. And he responds with, "There's an abandoned house on the edge of Fox Forest at the end of the service road. You'll find your answers there." So Betty goes to this abandoned house. And inside this abandoned house is a box. She opens up the box and there is a black hood inside. He tells her to put it on and turn around. She's wearing it. She turns around. She's looking into a mirror. And he says, "We are the same." Pretty intense. And we'll talk about it, but we have one more conversation between Betty and the Black Hood in these episodes. In episode 5, he calls Betty and he tells her that he knows that Betty has been telling Archie about their conversations. And he is going to go kill her sister Polly because of it. Unless Betty gives him the name of someone who deserves to be killed for their sins. So she essentially has to make a choice. I either have to give the Black Hood a name of someone to go and kill, or he's going to go kill my sister. So that's a hard situation to be in. So she quickly just says the name Nick St. Clair. Now, I know what you're thinking, Chase. Who is Nick St. Clair? That would be this guy. This is one of Veronica's old, childhood friends from back home. He and his family are in town to go to Veronica's parents' like open house thing because they're like raising money for their big plan. And Nick is the classic spoiled rich kid, and he actually tries to take advantage of Veronica, and so she slaps him. And then the next day, he apologizes to her, and he explains like he's been having an issue with substance abuse and addiction, and he's very embarrassed, and she actually forgives him. But then he immediately drugs Cheryl and tries to do the same thing to her. But luckily, Veronica and Josie and the Pussycats, they see it happening, and so they go and they all beat the shit out of this guy. Like, they were really putting the boots to this dude, just stomping his rich, privileged ass. So that is why Betty said his name, because she felt like he deserved to die. And, you know, can you blame her? Like, if it's between this guy and her sister, you know, I guess he has to die, you know? Now, I do imagine that that will be something that Betty struggles with, considering if the Black Hood does kill this guy, Betty kind of like offered him up on a silver platter. Probably will make her feel like she is partly responsible for his death. Obviously, there was extenuating circumstances, but, you know, probably a difficult situation to go through. And that is where episode 5 ends. So that is all the information that we have about that. So what does all of this tell us about who the Black Hood is? We know that it is someone that Betty would recognize. This information came directly from his mouth. When Betty was talking to him at one point, she goes, "Would I recognize the face under the mask?" He said yes. Now the rest of what I'm about to say is what I can deduce. You know, it's more speculation on my part, or speculation even from some of the characters in the show. For instance, the coroner in Riverdale said this about Miss Grundy's dead body. He said, "The way that she was strangled with the bow, this was a crime of passion, which means to me that this was personal." Which would make sense, right? Because the Black Hood is out on this vendetta to kill sinners, which means that he probably took great pleasure in killing her. When Jughead and his new friend Tony Topaz, this is her, she is a Southside Serpent, and she goes to school with Jughead at Southside High. In fact, like, she's the one kind of like showing him the ropes and stuff. Ooh, and they kiss. Her and Jughead kiss after Betty breaks up with Jughead through Archie, if you remember that. Well, anyway, they are talking about true crime and serial killers. And she says this about the Black Hood. "Our guy wears a mask, which suggests he is filled with self-loathing. Our guy wears a mask, which suggests that he is filled with self-loathing. But he also sends letters and cryptos to the press, which means he is a narcissist or a Batman villain. So basically, he is ashamed of what he is doing, but he is also proud of it. He wants the world to know that he's doing it, but not that it's actually him." And if we add in the context of him telling Betty that she would recognize his face, that means that we were probably looking for someone that we know. And we know for a fact that the Black Hood is a white man in his 40s. And that strongly narrows it down. Since we mostly follow teenagers in this show, that means that we would be looking at the parents or the adults in town. And it is a white guy, which means that Veronica's dad is in the clear. Fred was the one who was shot by the Black Hood, so that means it can't be him. FP was in jail when it happened, it can't be him. Clifford Blossom, Cheryl's dad, is dead, can't be him. All that leaves us with is 2 characters. Betty's dad, Hal, and Kevin's dad, the sheriff, Sheriff Keller. Both of these are very interesting options. But I will say the sheriff is kind of the more enticing of the 2, because we don't really know much about him, other than him being Kevin's dad, of course. Most of the time, he just kind of is like this silent, incompetent cop who just does whatever the mayor tells him to do. It's even brought up a few times that he is not the one who ended up solving the murder of Jason Blossom. It was a bunch of teenagers. My theory is maybe he has had enough. He's tired of following the red tape. He's tired of following the rules. He's tired of doing everything that the mayor tells him to do because of politics or wanting to keep his job. He would be more effective as an enforcer of justice if he did not have to follow all those blasted rules. Like, you can't shoot up a couple of teenagers for doing some recreational drugs and hook up. You know, that would be wrong. That would be against the rules. But he thinks it's what's right. And he was inspired by Betty's speech that they need to step up and do what's right. So he's going to do what he thinks is right, which is shooting teenagers and Fred. And honestly, the sheriff, being the one who is the Black Hood, would answer a lot of questions for us. Like, how did the Black Hood get Betty's mom's mugshot? She claimed that she had it wiped from any online source. But you know who probably still has a copy? The sheriff. At the sheriff's station. It would also explain how his son Kevin could be running around the woods all night long trying to hook up with dudes and yet never runs into the Black Hood. The only thing that it doesn't explain is why is he obsessed with Betty? Is the reason he's so obsessed with Betty just because of the speech that she gave that inspired him? Or is he just trying to work with her because he thinks that she could help clean up the town? I don't know. That's the part that doesn't really line up. You know, with the sheriff theory, it doesn't all fall into place. The Black Hood seems to be kind of obsessed with Betty, right? The Black Hood knew that Betty used to check out that Nancy Drew secret code book all the time when she was a little kid. He wants her to break up with Jughead, to cut off her best friends. It feels like it's an obsession with Betty in almost a sexual way. He wants to cut her off from all of her friends and family so that she has nothing but him. And I don't know if the sheriff is that kind of guy, or if this is all... maybe it's just all a part of a strategy or a plan, and this obsession with Betty, I'm looking a little bit too deep into it. But we do have another theory that kind of lines up a little bit better when it comes to the Betty obsession, and that would be Betty's dad. Obviously, he would know about the Nancy Drew secret code book from when she was a kid. That's kind of the only thing. You know, like if you're asking the question, who would know about her obsession with that book as a kid, her parents would be kind of the main people who would know that information. He would also have a reason to not want his daughter involved with Jughead, who is involved with the Southside Serpents. He wouldn't want her associated with Veronica Lodge, the daughter of these major criminals. And when the Black Hood says that he's cleaning up this town, it kind of sounds like a very fatherly way, right? Like he wants to clean up the town so that way it's a better place for his daughter. He would probably have access to his wife's old mugshot. He would know about his other daughter's whereabouts 2 hours north at the farm. And he would be able to just kind of keep up with what Betty is generally up to because they live in the same house. But the big thing about this theory that I just don't think lines up is why would he put his daughter through something like this? It's scary and traumatizing. Making your daughter pick the next person that you are going to kill? Telling your daughter that you are going to kill her sister, your other daughter, if she doesn't obey you? It's messed up. It's really messed up stuff. And honestly, we've seen this guy a lot. He's a main character. And sure, he was suspicious last season as a major suspect in the death of Jason Blossom, but that was an entirely different situation. We're not talking about this teenage boy who got caught up in this crazy blood feud. We're talking about an absolute psychopath who unloaded a gun on two teenagers who were at Lover's Lane. This is not the same situation. This is a psychopathic serial killer. That's not just something that happens to you overnight. You don't go from kind of an ordinary father man and then the next day you're a psychopathic killer. You know, you don't hear your daughter give a speech and it immediately is like, oh, I need to just kill everyone. But that being said, the most damning piece of evidence for this theory is the big moment that happens where Betty puts on the black hood and looks into the mirror where the black hood on the phone says, "We are the same." A father and daughter share a lot of features. Maybe he was giving her a hint, like, hey, look in the mirror. You see your face? It's my face. We share a lot. I've got the same eyes as you. I have the same nose as you. When I say we are the same, I literally mean we are the same. That's pretty chilling, right? So let's dig a little bit deeper. Because a whole giant theme of this season of Riverdale so far is the war between the North Side and the South Side. And the Black Hood is killing people on the North Side of Riverdale. This is making him some sort of hero to the Southsiders and vice versa. The Northsiders more than ever feel like the Black Hood is someone from the South Side. And every time something happens, it's just cranking up the tension between the two, north and southern parts of the same city, town, place. And I'm curious if that is the plan, right? You're turning up the tension. You're turning it up to the point where it's just going to ignite. Is the plan to spark the match that finally ignites this giant war? Like, we see a scene in the show where all of the South Side is being blamed for everything in the newspaper. And they are accusing the South Side Serpents in particular. So the Serpents want to go and set a bomb in the newspaper building. We're getting full-on street fights between Northsiders and Southsiders. And during that rumble with Archie and the Bulldogs, the Riverdale High football team, and then the Southside Serpents, Dilton Doily got stabbed in the leg. Who is set to gain something from a war? I'm assuming that it might be the man who's currently building like a giant mall and apartments and, like a golf course on the south side of Riverdale. And that would be Hiram Lodge. He bought the land that the drive-in was on for like cheap, and now he's planning on gentrifying the south side. And we know that he was paying Southside Serpents last season to hang out at the drive-in to lower the property value so that way he could buy it cheaper. Who's to say that he wouldn't plan bombings and shootings to try to lower the property value of the entire city? That would allow him to buy more and more property in Riverdale for a very small price. And I feel like I have some pretty solid evidence to back up this theory. Remember, Fred. He was shot at Pop's Diner. And after that happened, the place was going out of business. And like a major plot point was Betty and the rest of the gang trying to save Pops. Like, people were spray painting stuff like Death Diner on the side of the building. No one was going there. But then they were able to save it. Yay! And Veronica's dad, in an act of goodwill towards his daughter, made a sizable donation to help keep the place going. Or so Veronica thinks. What Hiram actually did was buy the diner, and he's letting Pops stay on as the manager in exchange for his silence about the whole thing. So that's what I'm saying, right? Like, someone was shot there, Fred. No one went, the property value dropped to cheap, and then Hiram was able to come in and buy it at a low price. But we know that Hiram cannot be the actual Black Hood, plus that doesn't really seem to be his MO. I imagine he would hire someone to do it. But then, I have another question. If this whole situation is just Hiram hiring someone to cause chaos and panic to lower the property value, then why in the world would the Black Hood be doing this like crazy, talking about saving Riverdale and talking about getting rid of sinners and sending ciphers and sending stuff in the newspaper to publish? That doesn't feel right. Like, why would a random guy who was hired to do this be obsessed with Betty and like call her and send her letters and stuff? The motives and the actions are not lining up. Betty's dad does not seem like the kind of guy that just goes crazy and kills a bunch of people. But he does seem like the kind of guy that would do something like that for money. So, I mean, I guess that means that all of the self-righteous punishing sinner stuff could be a cover-up, to like throw everyone off of what's actually going on. So the theory that I want to lock in is that Hiram Lodge has hired Betty's dad to cause chaos and shoot people and be a serial killer. And the whole craziness of the Black Hood and the letters and the ciphers and the obsession with Betty, it's all a cover, right? But I have one last curveball to throw at you guys. After Betty gave the letter that the Black Hood sent to her to the police, they had the handwriting tested. And get this, the handwriting on the letter that Betty received did not match the handwriting that Alice, Betty's mom, received, which means whoever sent that first note to Alice, remember, they're the one that had Fred's wallet and the sunglasses, proving that they are the actual Black Hood. Their handwriting is not the same as whoever sent Betty the letter. And considering that when the second letter was sent to Betty, that's the one that included the cipher. The cipher said that his next kill or whatever was going to be at the town hall that night. But nothing ended up happening at the town hall. Here is my theory. I think that we're dealing with like a separate situation. The reason that I can't figure out why the Black Hood would be obsessed with Betty, or why someone who would be obsessed with Betty would do what the Black Hood is doing, is because it's two separate situations. I think that the person who's been calling Betty and sending Betty letters and trying to make her cut off the people in her life, that's her dad. Because explain this to me. When Betty asked the Black Hood, what will stop you? And the Black Hood says, you, if you keep doing what I tell you to do. How is Betty cutting off her best friend Veronica or her boyfriend Jughead? How is that saving Riverdale from sinners? The motives aren't matching up. But if you're a father who's trying to get your daughter to stop being friends with certain individuals or dating a boy who's a part of a biker gang, I think that he's just using the Black Hood serial killer that's running around town as an opportunity to get his daughter to listen to what he wants her to do. I bet they don't teach that in parenting books. How to discipline as a father. Step 1. If your town has a serial killer on the loose, try pretending to be him so that your daughter will do whatever you say, or else her loved ones will die. Step 2. Establishing a curfew can be important in any household. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense? The reason that it feels complicated and convoluted is because we're dealing with two separate situations. The Black Hood that is obsessed with Betty and is making Betty do these things is not actually the Black Hood. That's just her dad using the name the Black Hood to try to get her to do what he says. The actual serial killer going around shooting Fred, killing Miss Grundy, shooting up Moose and Midge, that's someone else entirely. So if we separate the Betty stuff from the rest of the Black Hood stuff, our motive for it being Betty's dad kind of goes out the window, because it's like, why does he care about cleaning up the town? But you know who would care about cleaning up the town of Riverdale? The sheriff. And if we're going with this theme of the season, which is North Side versus South Side, and that would make Hiram Lodge almost definitely involved somehow, we've seen the sheriff practically do the bidding of the mayor a lot. He does whatever he's told. So maybe the sheriff is the one who is hired by Hiram to be the Black Hood, or maybe he's just sick of the rules entirely and is doing this on his own accord. Now, here is one last big issue that will help us go in a different direction or keep going in the same direction. That last call that the Black Hood had with Betty, the Black Hood makes Betty give him a name to kill. She says Nick St. Clair. So, if Nick St. Clair dies in the next episode that we watch, then that means that my theory about it being Betty's dad and it being like a whole separate situation is not right? Because if he's just trying to get his daughter to do what he says, he's not going to actually kill someone. Especially someone that he has no connection to whatsoever. But if we go the next few episodes and nothing happens to Nick St. Clair, then that proves that we're probably on the right track. Guys, the whole fact that the handwriting on the two different letters don't match really makes me think that we're on the right track. I really think we're on to something here. So that is what I'm going to be locking in for my prediction of who is the Black Hood killer for episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5. I am going to lock in Sheriff Keller as the Black Hood.
The part where we stop the Black Hood. But right now, I need you with me.
I know where this ends. Death.
Okay, guys, red alert. And I don't mean red alert just because I'm Archie now. I got red hair. Okay, in sincerity, this is insane. I just watched episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9. But here's the thing. I am currently like at the end of episode 9. I haven't finished the episode yet. Currently, Archie has the Black Hood at gunpoint. And he can't go anywhere. The Black Hood is trapped. And then boom, Sheriff Keller shows up and shoots the Black Hood. And Sheriff Keller says he's dead. And then Betty goes, who is he? And Sheriff Keller was about to take the mask off, so I just hit pause. I panicked. I hit pause because I think we're about to get the big reveal. This is a 22 episode season of Riverdale. I was not expecting to get the big reveal in episode 9. So I hit pause because even if this is a false alarm and they're not about to actually unmask the Black Hood, I would rather be safe than sorry because, like, can you imagine if this video was just over and all I did was I had to lock in twice? Because I really want to be able to solve this, dude. I did not solve season 1. I want to be able to solve this mystery. Jesus, dude, I really can't believe that we've already gotten the reveal in this season. Because if we get the reveal right now, then what is the rest of this season even about? Anyway, so much has happened in this 3.5 episodes I've seen. In this chunk. So let's just start breaking down the different clues and suspects and stuff. I'm like shaking right now. I am panicking. Okay, so in the last part, I locked in that I thought the Black Hood was Sheriff Keller. And then I also had the theory that Betty's dad was pretending to be the Black Hood in order to get her to do what he says. Well, as good as both of those theories were, major wrenches have been thrown. At one point in episode 6, the Black Hood tells Betty that she needs to figure out the identity of the Sugar Man. The Sugar Man is the guy who is making all of the jingle jangle in Riverdale. And it's honestly a very fun episode because it's like this conspiracy of who is the Sugar Man. And at the end of the episode, of course, Betty figures out who the Sugar Man is with the help of all her friends. And Betty has a decision to make. She can either give the name of the Sugar Man to the Black Hood, who will then kill the Sugar Man, and then Betty is kind of an accessory to murder. Or she can not give the Black Hood the name of the Sugar Man and just turn the Sugar Man into the police. But the hard part about that is the Black Hood is threatened Betty's family, like especially her sister. Well, instead of giving the Black Hood the name of the Sugar Man, Betty just publishes the information on the front page of the school newspaper. And he gets arrested by Sheriff Keller, and he's like, he's locked up at the sheriff's station. He's safe from the Black Hood. By the way, the Sugar Man ended up being one of Jughead's teachers at Southside High. He really wasn't that big of a deal, wasn't very important, but it was him. And now, Betty has turned the whole thing onto the Black Hood because the Black Hood's pissed. Betty did not do what he said for her to do, and now he can't kill this guy because he's in the sheriff's station safe behind bars, and the Black Hood wanted to kill him. And so he calls up Betty all upset, but Betty turns it on to him, and she says this really badass line. She goes, I found out who killed Jason Blossom. I found out who the Sugar Man is. You're next. Essentially saying, I'm not afraid of you, Black Hood, and I'm coming for you. You're the one who's being hunted now. But then the Sugar Man gets shot and killed inside the police station. So I see that and I'm like, dude, it has to be the sheriff. And then the worst thing that can possibly happen to me in one of these videos happened. Betty also suspects Sheriff Keller as the Black Hood, which means to me that he is absolutely not the Black Hood. Because if you're saving, this is just mystery writing 101. If you're saving the reveal of the Black Hood to be this big shocking reveal, you don't have him become a major suspect to one of the main detectives, who in this case is Betty. So immediately I have to pivot. So the best thing for us to do right now is just kind of break down all of the actions of the Black Hood in this batch of episodes and see if we can pull any sort of meaning out of it. The Black Hood did not kill Nick St. Clair after Betty gave him his name. He said that he didn't kill him because he is not one of Riverdale's sons, which I guess means that the Black Hood is only killing people that are from Riverdale, but that doesn't even make any sense because Miss Grundy wasn't from Riverdale. Then in episode 7, we get this like a whole new thread that we go down where Jughead learns about an old serial killer from Riverdale's past, the Riverdale Reaper. The Riverdale Reaper busted into some family's home with a shotgun and just killed everyone. Husband, wife, children. And this is a conversation that Jughead has with this creepy trucker guy who's telling him about the Riverdale Reaper. This is how the conversation goes. What happened to the Reaper? Some say he was hunted down by some men in town and killed. Some say he hopped a train to California. Some say he never left Riverdale. So the theory for Jughead and the gang then becomes, is the Black Hood the same guy as the Riverdale Reaper? A stipulation of that would mean that the Black Hood would now be in like his 60s. So now they're starting to look into that to see if that theory holds any water, and that's when they realize that there was not just 2 children in the house that night. There were 3 children who were in the house the night that the whole family got killed. One of the children escaped. He had his name changed and he was adopted, and he still lives in Riverdale to this day. He is this guy, the janitor at Riverdale High. His real name is Joseph. I call him the janitor. Well, that's when we learn about what happened to the Reaper. Joseph actually got a look at the man who killed his family that night, the Riverdale Reaper. And so a group of men from Riverdale took Joseph, the janitor, and they took him to this hotel room, and they pointed at this guy that was staying in this hotel, and he said, "Is this the guy you saw?" And Joseph, the janitor, said, "Yeah, that's him." So then that group of men from Riverdale buried that stranger alive. But then, years and years and years later, Joseph admitted that maybe due to the trauma and everything that happened that night, that perhaps he pointed the finger at the wrong guy. And the guy that he told them was the killer might not have been an actual killer. He might have pointed out an innocent man, which means that an innocent man was killed that night by a group of men in Riverdale that were looking for justice. And that sin, the sin of killing an innocent man, accusing him of being the Riverdale Reaper when it wasn't actually him, and killing him without a trial or anything, that is what the Black Hood is calling Riverdale's primal sin. And the Black Hood has seemingly kidnapped the janitor, Joseph, and he has sent Betty a gift box with Joseph's finger in it. We also find out that Betty's grandfather was one of the men in the group that killed the innocent man searching for justice. We also find out that Cheryl's Nana, Nana Blossom, was also there that night. So it seems like a lot of the Riverdale founding families were involved with the killing of that innocent man when they were searching for vengeance. And I'm assuming that that must play some sort of major element in this whole situation, right? But I don't really know, because if I'm being completely honest, the Black Hood really doesn't show up a lot in this batch of episodes. There's like so much other stuff going on. Like Jughead's dad, FP, is out of jail, but then because of Jughead's actions as a serpent, it's got him stuck being a serpent when he was gonna leave. Then Betty fucking joins the Southside Serpents. They make her do a stripper dance to join. But then Jughead breaks up with her, but then they get back together. Well, they got back together after Betty broke up with him. You remember that? Remember, the Black Hood told her to cut ties with him, and then, well, anyway, they get back together. They're back together. She joins the Southside Serpents. He gets upset about that whole thing, breaks up with her because he wants to protect her from that life. Archie tells Veronica that he loves her, and that creates a lot of weirdness because Veronica does not say it back. And so then she breaks up with him. Veronica is brought into her family business of crime. Cheryl has not been doing a whole lot, but she does seem upset. But she does seem obsessed with Josie from Josie and the Pussycats. I'm not really sure where that's going. Oh, and then at one point, Veronica tells her dad about what Nick St. Clair tried to do to her at that party. And then Nick St. Clair accidentally gets in a car accident and can't walk. Like, his legs are destroyed. Yeah, pretty wild stuff. What else happened? The guy that plays Candyman shows up. You know, Candyman from the movie Candyman. He shows up. This is really kind of like supernatural horror episode. It was honestly sick. We got to hear a lot about Greendale, which is that town on the other side of Sweetwater River. I'm pretty sure that Greendale is where the Sabrina the Teenage Witch show is set. So, and that's like very supernatural. So that's fun. But when it comes to the Black Hood and who he is, all of the clues were really pointing at Sheriff Keller, which is bad news for me because that's who I locked in. He's just doing stuff like sneaking out of his house late at night. He's acting weird. And like, I was going to do this whole breakdown of this conversation that Sheriff Keller has with Betty, where Betty is like, hey, can I ask you some questions about the Black Hood? And then he tells Betty, you get one question, make it count. And that's kind of the same deal that Betty had with the Black Hood. Like, you do what I say, you get one question. So I was going to do a whole thing about that parallel. And then we just find out that the reason that Sheriff Keller's been acting so weird is because he's been having an affair with the mayor. So who's the Black Hood? I genuinely have no idea. And that's why I'm absolutely shocked that we're about to get the big reveal, potentially. Because I thought we were going to have a lot more episodes of Clues and Suspects. Because right now, nothing makes sense. None of these people being the Black Hood killer makes any sense. Or maybe it does and I'm just missing something. But I just feel like I don't have that much to work off of, you know? Here's my big fear. My big fear is that they rip the mask off this dude and it's someone we've never even seen before. Because then this was just like a waste of my time. And this video's over and it's only been however long it's been. You guys would be disappointed. I would be disappointed. YouTube would take back my 100K play button that they actually haven't sent me yet, but it's coming. By the way, thank you guys for 100K. It's super sick. Basically, we need to regroup and really focus on the main thing that I always try to focus on when solving these mysteries, and that is looking at the main theme of the story. And the main theme of this story in this season has been North Side versus South Side. It's a class war between the two different parts of Riverdale. There's a part of town that feels demonized and abandoned. And then there's the other part of town that demonizes and accuses the other side of all of the problems in Riverdale. But we do have a character who's kind of the opposite of the Black Hood, and that is Jughead. He is the character who's trying to bring the North and the South Side together. But the Black Hood wants them to be disconnected, apart, at war with each other. So let's look at the other theme of this season. It's a town of sinners. Everyone is hiding behind masks. They're pretending to be perfect when really there's dark, secrets under the surface of their lives. The Black Hood claims that he wants to cleanse the city of all of the sins of Riverdale. He's acting as a righteous executioner to clean up the town. He killed Miss Grundy for, preying on her students. He shot Fred for being an adulterer. He shot up Moose and Midge for doing drugs and hooking up at Lover's Lane. He killed the man who was supplying the town with drugs. And then he has kidnapped the man who pointed out a wrongly accused man and caused his death. He's like a fire and brimstone pastor. And he doesn't see the hypocrisy of killing some teenagers, or trying to kill some teenagers for doing recreational drugs, and then turn around and kill Miss Grundy for harming teenagers. Like, you're doing the same thing, if not worse. And then there's that one part that I can't figure out when it comes to his motive and the theme of that character, and that is his obsession with Betty. Why does he have Betty doing stuff like cutting off Veronica? What good does that do for the Black Hood? I understand why he would need Betty's help to figure out the identity of the Sugar Man. Betty has proven to be an amazing detective and has been able to discover all of the identities of the bad men of Riverdale. But what's up with this other stuff? Why make her break up with Jughead? Why make her do these other tasks, like do the expose of her mother in the newspaper? I just don't get why her. And then I think maybe it could be connected because her grandfather was a part of the posse who killed the man who was wrongly accused of being the Riverdale Reaper. Or is this all just because it was her speech at the Jubilee that inspired him to do this? My issue is I cannot find a single individual who would line up with all of these different themes. Who wants a class war between the North and the South sides of Riverdale? Who also wants to clean the town of sinners and hypocrites? And why would he also be obsessed with Betty and want to cut her off from her friends and family? We haven't had that many suspects so far. So I guess we should look at the ones that we have found suspicious before. Sheriff Keller, obviously, but he's pretty much ruled out. Then there's Hiram Lodge. He would definitely want that class war between the North and the South side. But why would he want to kill teenagers for making out in a car, you know? Then there's Betty's dad. Now, it makes sense, I guess, for why he would want Betty cut off from her friends and her boyfriend. It's, you know, an overprotective father type of thing. That we could get behind. But why the fuck would Hal care about the North side versus the South side? Why would he care about shooting Fred Andrews for dating Hermione Lodge while her husband's in jail? Which led me to my next theory, being maybe the reason that I can't figure out which individual fits all of these different themes and motives. What if everyone is the Black Hood? None of these crimes are connected. What if these are all different people using the alias of the Black Hood to do their dirty work? Here's what I think. I think Hiram hired someone to shoot Fred. That guy who was hired to shoot Fred wore a black hood just because that's just what that guy does. Then that's all over the newspapers. Guy in a black hood shoots Fred Andrews. Oh my gosh, who is this guy? Then Miss Grundy's abusive ex-husband, I guess he's an abusive ex-husband. That's what she said, but I don't think we can trust her. But she claimed to have an abusive ex-husband. Perhaps this abusive ex-husband saw the newspapers that there was a guy in a black hood that shot someone in Riverdale. So he put on the same kind of black hood and he killed his ex-wife. And he uses the new serial killer, the Black Hood, as an excuse to get away with it. Because then they're not looking for family members. They're looking for the same guy that shot Fred. Maybe someone from the school is jealous of Moose and Midge's relationship or something. So they just shoot them up. And he just wears a black hood because that's what everyone's talking about. Basically, everyone is using the Black Hood as a get-out-of-jail-free card for committing heinous acts. Hal Cooper is pretending to be the Black Hood so that he can get his daughter to cut off the friends that he disapproves of. Does that make sense? Like when the Black Hood puts out a letter that says, "I am all of you," he means it literally. But that being said, because this was the path I was going on, and then we watched Sheriff Killer shoot the Black Hood, and now I think they're about to unmask him. Which means that we need to kind of pick one person to be the Black Hood. Oh, God. I don't even know who else is left. We locked in at one point, or brought up the idea at one point, that Betty's secret older brother that we heard about last season could be the Black Hood. So I'm thinking maybe Sheriff Keller shoots the Black Hood. They take the mask off. It's a guy we've never seen before. Then we find out, after the blood work or whatever, the autopsy, hey, this guy is Betty's secret older brother. But that just kind of feels anticlimactic, you know? Guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't even know who else there even is to lock in. This might be the first time ever in one of these videos that I just don't lock in a guess, and we just see what happens. But I can't let that happen. Is Riverdale Season 2 going to be the mystery that defeats me? Oh my God. There's not that many white guys in their 40s on this board, right? Most of these people are teenagers. So if we take away the ones that we've already gotten rid of, that only leaves one white guy in his 40s on the board, and that would be the janitor, right? And we did get this major theme in this batch of episodes about the Riverdale Reaper. We learned all about his backstory, where he was a part of the family that got shot up and killed. He was the only survivor. He witnessed the person who did it, but in the trauma of it all, accidentally pointed to the wrong person. Maybe I had written him off as a suspect because Betty had received his severed finger in a box. I guess there is a theory here that perhaps he cut off his own finger and put it in a box. It kind of lines up, I guess, dude. Like, obviously he's got that trauma of watching his family be murdered in front of him. He had his name changed. He lived in Riverdale his whole life. He has to live with the guilt of accusing the wrong man. And remember, the Black Hood called that Riverdale's primal sin. He maybe he's upset with the people of Riverdale because when he was just a little boy who had suffered a traumatic accident, or not accident, Can you tell I'm struggling? Maybe he is wanting revenge on the people of Riverdale who, when he was a little boy, they forced him to kind of like point the finger at this con artist who was coming through town and being like, that was him, wasn't it? That was him. I bet that was him. And so he kind of went along with it and was like, yeah, I think that was him. And now he's had to live his whole life with that guilt on his conscience. So maybe that could be the motive behind it. And then he's the janitor, right? So he's been in Riverdale this whole time. He would have been at the Jubilee when Betty gave her speech. Maybe it is him. Maybe it is this character that we met in the past, like 4 episodes. It's not my favorite theory. In fact, I think it's kind of bullshit, but it's the only thing I've got. I mean, he's the only guy up here, right? I've already, am I overlooking someone? I guess it's just, all right, that's what I'm locking in. I'm locking in that it's the janitor and that he cut off his own finger or whatever. All right, well, I still have like the rest of that episode to watch. So I'm going to go hit play. We're going to find out if the Black Hood gets unmasked, or if maybe this was just a big fake out and I've just panicked in front of you guys for all of that time for no reason, because we still have like 15 episodes of this season to watch. I can't believe I just panicked in front of all my YouTube friends like this, dude. This is so embarrassing. All right, let's go finish the episode. Okay, I just finished that episode. I didn't do like a bumper in between because it's the same episode we're talking about. The Black Hood does get unmasked, and dude, I nailed it. It was the janitor, and he cut off his own finger. And honestly, I kind of wish that was it, because then I could say I solved it, and I would get to put a win in the win category. But something does not feel right about the reveal. It felt very deflated. There was a very strong vibe that this was not the real Black Hood killer. For 2 major reasons. The first reason, it would feel very poetic and true to the theme of this season that Joseph Conway, the man who, when he was a little kid, wrongly accused a person of being the Riverdale Reaper, and then that guy died because of it. It would be very poetic that he then, in turn, was killed after being wrongly accused of being the Black Hood killer. And secondly, it goes against all story structure logic. The Black Hood was introduced in the season 1 finale of Riverdale. And then the janitor is introduced and revealed to be the killer in a 3-episode story arc in the middle of season 2. It does not make any sense. So what I did is I called my buddy Jonathan. You can go check out his channel, link down below. I knew Jonathan had seen Riverdale already, so I called him. And I said, don't give me any names, don't give me any information, do not say anything about Riverdale. Just answer this question, yes or no. Does the big reveal of who is the Black Mask killer, the Black Hood killer, does that happen in episode 9? And he said, no. So that means that this was not the actual reveal. We have to keep watching the rest of this 22 episode season. I got really scared that this video was over already. If I'm being completely honest, I was quite devastated. But, now I know that there is more mystery to solve. We're going to keep trucking through these episodes. I'm very excited to keep watching. Let's keep watching.
You brought the North Side down on us.
What were you and my father chatting about?
Did you really think you'd see the last of me?
Okay, everyone, I just watched episodes 10, 11, 12, and 13. And don't worry, I still have the Southside Serpents jacket. Guys, the show is incredible. I'm really loving it. Some insane stuff has been happening. However, we have gotten exactly 0 things that relate to the Black Hood in this batch of episodes. The only thing that has related to the Black Hood at all is that we get a scene where Archie is talking to an FBI agent. And this FBI agent is trying to get him to flip onto the lodges, kind of snitch on the Lodge family. And Archie asks the FBI agent, in your expert opinion, do you think we got the right guy? Because I'm not so sure we did. Archie looked into the bright green eyes of the Black Hood. And when the janitor dude was unmasked, it was not the same eyes. And that is why Archie is not so sure. But other than that, the Black Hood is not even brought up in any of the other parts of these episodes. 4 whole episodes. No Black Hood. However, we do get some stuff that might help us, solve the mystery. We can use it as a foundation. So we'll break that stuff down. We learn about the history of Riverdale. It was founded by a guy named General Augustus Pickens. He came in and just wiped out all of the Native Americans that were living in that area that would later become Riverdale. And he did this because he was being paid by Colonel Barnabas B. Blossom. That's right, the Blossom family, Cheryl's family. They wanted the land so that they could start their maple syrup empire there. Well, the surviving members of the Native American tribe that lived in that area, they formed the Southside Serpents as a way to stick together. And that is the big theme of this batch of episodes. It's serpents and the Southsiders versus the rich, powerful Northsiders. In these episodes, it is revealed that the lodges have actually purchased the land that Southside High is built on. So the school gets shut down. All of the students that go to Southside High are split up into various local high schools, including Riverdale High. The lodges are completely gentrifying the South Side, even to the point where the trailer park where Jughead and his dad live, they and all the other, there's serpents and other Southsiders that live there, they're all being evicted. And it boils down to the point where there's kind of a war going on between the Southside Serpents and the lodges. So Hiram Lodge and his daughter Veronica meet up with Jughead and his dad FP for them to kind of, come up to some sort of agreement about this trailer park. Kind of the agreement is they're trying to get Jughead to keep from doing this big expose article about him, but Jughead refuses, and he's like, I'm going to put out this article because Jughead has actually figured out what is going on. The mayor of Riverdale, Mayor McCoy, has been doing everything that the lodges tell her to do in exchange for a hefty donation to her re-election. That relationship between the lodges and the mayor, that falls apart in itself because the lodges, they want to go ahead and make an announcement about what they're planning to do with the Southside High property. But Mayor McCoy does not want them to announce their plans for the South Side until after re-election because she's afraid that the announcement of their plans is going to cost her re-election. Which she would absolutely lose because essentially it would have shown that she has sold out the entire south side of her town to a rich family. But the lodges do not want to wait until after re-election. They want to do it now. So what they do is they threaten her and say that they are going to expose her affair with Sheriff Keller, which would be pretty detrimental for her as a person, considering she's married and so is Sheriff Keller. But before they are able to expose that affair, Veronica who is now a part of the family business. She goes and talks to the mayor, essentially convincing her to step down and resign as mayor. So, she steps down, which means that the affair doesn't have to come out. All's well that ends well, I guess. Speaking of Veronica joining the family business, which is the mafia, by the way, Archie actually manages to win over Hiram's respect, and now he is Hiram's intern. And after what we find out is a fake FBI agent trying to convince Archie to flip, Archie does not. He sticks with the lodges. It turns out that was a fake FBI agent that they sent to see if he would snitch or not, if the FBI threatened his dad or whatever. He held strong, 10 toes down. He ain't no snitch. So now he's a part of the family. It's pretty wild stuff, especially when Archie overhears another mafia boss talking about how they need to take out Hiram. So Archie warns Hiram. Archie ends up having that guy killed. So yeah, Archie's going to the dark side, and honestly, kind of way more of a badass now. Ooh, now we can talk about a big plot point that we've been talking about, even though it had never happened. This whole season, I've been talking about how it was mentioned last season in the finale that Betty had a secret older brother that her parents gave up for adoption when they were in high school. Well, he has arrived, and he is a fucking psychopath. I don't like his vibe at all, I'll tell you that much. Neither does Hal. Hal doesn't like him one bit, and he keeps being really mean to him. But Betty and her mom are siding with their newly found family member. And so Chick is now living with Betty and Alice. Hal, he gets kicked out again. Honestly, I'm kind of siding with Hal on this one. I don't really like that motherfucker. But what I don't agree with is Hal runs off. He's shacked up with Cheryl's mom. That's pretty crazy. Oh, by the way, this is Betty's secret older brother, Chick. Speaking of Cheryl's mom, though, she's a prostitute now. This show is insane. I love it. Anyway, Chick is caught up in some pretty shady business, and a drug dealer comes looking for him at the house. And then Chick, kills that guy in their kitchen. So to protect her son, Alice starts, cleaning up this dead body. Betty shows up, sees what's happening. She steps in. She's helping. They're covering up a murder. They hide the body and everything, but they're not professionals. So Betty is panicking because she's afraid that the body's going to get found and then they're going to go to jail for murder. And so she tells Jughead about it, who in turn tells his dad, FP. By the way, Jughead and Betty are back together again. These kids break up and get back together so often, I can't even keep track if the last time we talked they were together or apart. Oh well, Jughead helps Betty get rid of the drug dealer's car, which has been parked outside of their house for the past few days. And then FP, who by the way is my favorite character in this show. I'm also just a big fan of Skeet Ulrich. Love that guy. FP takes care of the body, does some chemicals on it, so it'll all disappear. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that's going on in these episodes. Nothing about the Black Hood. There's still some turf war stuff going on between the North Side and the South Side. But, I mean, honestly, it's nothing to write home about or write to YouTube about, I guess. But our question, our mystery, who is the Black Hood? He has seemingly disappeared for now, so it doesn't really give us much to go off of. I would just lock in Chick, Betty's secret older brother, because he gives me the heebie-jeebies, man. He's like if Dave Franco and Fred from YouTube had a baby. Freaks me out. I don't like him. He does not match the shape or build of the Black Hood, so I don't really think it could be him. I have officially 0 suspects left. Now, on the bright side, I managed to pull out the buzzer beater on the fake reveal of the janitor, but that doesn't really help me out much considering it wasn't the real reveal. It's just a fake reveal. So I've just got to figure out, it's pretty simple really, who is connected to all of the different themes of this show. I mean, this is a show about politics and business and money and territory and community. How does the Black Hood fit into all of those themes that we've seen in this season? Which leads me to my only possible theory. I don't feel great about it, but it's the only thing available, which is beginning to become a trend in this episode, in this video. I'm struggling. Okay, guys, what I'm going to lock in is Sheriff Keller again. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chase, I thought you said that you weren't going with that theory anymore. You wrote him off as a suspect. Well, a large part of me writing him off as a suspect was because he shot and killed the Black Hood. But we know that that was a fake reveal. What if it is not a coincidence that the sheriff happened to show up and shoot the Black Hood seemingly when the sheriff was nowhere near there at first? It really looked like it was just going to be down to Archie to shoot that guy, and then the sheriff shows up out of nowhere. What if that was by design? What if the sheriff planned for this guy Joseph to be dressed as the Black Hood so that way he could show up, kill him, shoot and kill him? Now, he gets credit for killing the Black Hood, stopping the serial killer, and Joseph can't talk. Joseph can't, reveal anything in court or whatever, or under questioning, and it just looks like the Black Hood's gone, when in reality, it's been the sheriff the whole time. I feel pretty good about it, and that's kind of all I've got. So that's what I'm going to lock in for episodes 10, 11, 12, and 13. Sheriff Keller as the Black Hood. Probably a dumb pick, but it's all we've got. Well, all right, let's go watch the next 4 episodes or whatever and hope that we get some mention of the Black Hood.
I think they did something to her. They found it, FP.
We act like everything's normal.
Whatever you do, do not come home.
All right, serpents and bulldogs. I've watched episodes 14, 15, 16, and 17. Still no mention of the Black Hood. I have never experienced this before. Never have I ever, in all of my times of solving mysteries and teen dramas, had them just stop halfway through a season. If it wasn't for the fact that I asked my buddy back there, like, hey, is this the actual reveal? I'd probably have just assumed that this dude was the Black Hood and stopped the video there. Then I would have a billion comments being like, Chase, that wasn't the real reveal. You got to keep going. And then I'd have to pull the camera back out, So, yeah, I mean, it's been 8 episodes since we've gotten any talk of the Black Hood. I'm beginning to be worried that we're not even going to get the reveal this season. I'm afraid that they're going to do it in like season 3 or something. So, once again, just like in the last part, I'm going to have to lock in a prediction just kind of based on what's going on with the rest of the show. Which, by the way, in these past few episodes, the show's just become like The Sopranos. Archie is a part of the Lodge family mob, and he's helping Hiram Lodge out with his big plan for Riverdale, which we do find out what the big plan is. He is turning the land in the South Side that he has been buying up, specifically where Southside High used to be, and he is turning it into a prison, a for-profit prison. And all of this land is going to be for housing the people that work at the prison. It's going to become a prison town. I have a question, and maybe it's dumb. I might just Google it. How do you do a for-profit prison? Like, what's the profit there? Like, you're just incarcerating people for profit? Let me look it up. How does we're both going to get a lesson today. Profit prison work. These companies enter into contracts with federal, state, or local governments to house inmates. Oh, okay. So the government pays them a per diem or a monthly rate per inmate. Okay. That feels like having government run prisons with extra steps, because it's like the government are paying for it anyway, right? Like they're paying you. That's what the profit's from. That's why it's for profit, because you get paid per prisoner or whatever. Am I crazy? The lodges have also bought the Riverdale Register, which means that they are now in control of what gets put in the newspaper. Pretty crazy. Also crazy that someone can own the newspaper. That's weird, right? I mean, I know people do that in real life. Like, I think Jeff Bezos owns like the New York Times or something like that, allegedly. Don't quote me on that. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. So, I was close. We're doing a lot of research in this episode, you and I. Like, we're learning stuff. We're answering important questions. I wonder if the Washington Post is even profitable for Jeff Bezos. Speaking of the Riverdale Register, which is the newspaper that was formerly owned by Betty's parents, Hal and Alice, they are getting divorced. And we even see Betty's mom, Alice, show up to FP. I think they hooked up. Turns out the two of them used to be a thing back in the day when they were serpents together in the South Side. That's fun. Back to the lodges. In order to control even more of the town, Hermione is running for mayor. Archie's dad, Fred, You've heard me mention him. He was shot. He's very upset about the Lodge's plan to turn Riverdale into a... All right, Chase. To turn Riverdale into a prison town. So he's stepping up, and he's going to be running for mayor against her. Now, I know what you're thinking. Archie, the boy wonder, the one who always does the right thing, even when it is obnoxious. He is going to stand with his father and fight against the Lodges. Nope, this whole season's about how Archie's bad Archie now. Realistically, I believe that this season is showing Archie go from someone who is very naive, right? He's someone who always does the right thing, always tell the truth, always, oh, there's something wrong, let's go take him to the police. Like, he's so good that it's a naive good. And we watch him slowly realize how dark the real world is, how it's not always black and white, good or evil. There's gray area. Life is a gray area. He's completely traumatized by his dad getting shot and all of his other dealings with the Black Hood. Don't forget, the Black Hood tried to bury him alive. That's when he got shot and revealed that it was a fake reveal, that it was this janitor dude. And so now, through all of this stuff that's been going on, he's been kind of manipulated by Hiram Lodge into thinking he is still doing the right thing. He's still doing good. He's just having to do it a different way. For the first time, Archie has really experienced pure evil in the Black Hood, that he justifies doing bad things in an effort to prevent truly evil people like the Black Hood from thriving, if that makes sense. Like, basically, like, the protection of his family is worth killing people over, as an example. Archie, Veronica, Jughead, and Betty, they are all at the Lodge's cabin for the weekend. Some of the locals in the town where their cabin is rob them, and Archie actually hunts down one of the ones that were, like, robbing them. He chases him down, he catches him, he hands him to one of Hiram's henchmen, bodyguard dudes in the mafia. And as Archie is turning around and walking away, he hears him kill that guy. Archie essentially was, an accessory to that murder. And Archie's okay with it because that guy was a bad guy who put them in danger. He was robbing them. He was kind of like he had a baseball bat. He might have hurt Veronica. So in Archie's new mindset, he feels like it's justified that this guy is gone. Archie is usually Superman, right? The Boy Scout, always do the right thing. But this season, we've watched Archie not really go through a Superman story as we did last season. We're watching him kind of do like a Batman story arc. The darkness of his father being shot has created an aggression inside of him that is leading him to like a path of vengeance. And he's so in deep with Hiram Lodge, the godfather of Riverdale, to the point where they do a blood oath together. That is not sanitary, man. You do not know where this man has been. He's a part of the mob. He's part of the mob, man. I mean, Archie is out here at mafia dinners threatening other mafia bosses. At one point, Archie gets the rest of the football team together and they blow up a mafia boss's car. And he gets all of them to wear, like, they're all wearing these weird black masks and they call themselves the Dark Circle. Which is weird because, like, earlier in the season, Archie had gotten the football team together to form kind of like a neighborhood watch program to essentially protect the neighborhood from the Black Hood. And they called themselves the Red Circle. And they wear like red masks. And now they're the Black Circle or the Dark Circle or whatever. Archie's just so fucking lame, dude. Like, even when he's being a badass mafia henchman, he still does weird shit like name him and his friends the Dark Circle. It's just like, come on, dude. It's so vanilla. It's so basic. Fuck you, Archie. Where are my Jugheads at? So yeah, all that Archie being in the mob stuff is pretty wild. Not as wild as what's been going on with the Blossom family. They have this big public will reading for Clifford Blossom. Remember, that's Cheryl's dad who died at the end of last season. He was the big bad guy of the season. Well, after he had it in his will that this public will reading would be read after a formal investigation was done regarding his death and all of the drug circumstances. And essentially at this will reading, it says that a big chunk of money is being left to anyone that has Blossom blood. Now that means that Betty, her sister Polly, and her dad, who are all related to the Blossoms, as we found out, are if they submit a DNA test, they will be able to receive some of this money. But not Chick. Chick is not related to the Blossoms because Chick is Alice's son. He is, but he is not Hal's son. That's right. Alice cheated on Hal while they were in high school, had a baby with someone else. Now, we don't know who that someone else is. I think Betty is it FP? And she was like, no, it's not FP. So I guess it's not Jughead's dad, but we don't know who it is yet. A Chick is still very creepy, and it finally reaches a breaking point. You get creepy to a point where you got to get kicked out the house. Alice kicks him out the house. He's not kicked out of the family. He's just got to find his own place. I'm still not sure what his whole deal is. I don't know why he's so creepy, but he just is. He's creepy. As I was saying about the Blossoms, they're at the will reading when guess who walks in the door? Their dad, Clifford Blossom. The one who died. Psych, it's not actually Clifford Blossom. It's his twin brother. His name is Claudius. I'm running out of room on my conspiracy board, but this is him. This is him right here. Turns out that he left Riverdale years and years and years ago because he was the one being bred to take over the family business. And Clifford, his twin brother, who, Cheryl's dad, was jealous. He wanted the family business. So he held his brother up at gunpoint and essentially told him to get out of town. Apparently there's this thing called the Blossom Curse, where the Blossoms have a ton of twins in their family. And one of the twins always meets a gruesome death, usually at the hands of the other twin. And this goes all the way back to great-great-grandpappy Blossom, who killed his twin brother, who was this is intense, the Cooper's family. Remember, the Cooper family and the Blossom family is the same family until great-great-grandpappy Blossom killed his twin brother, and to which that side of the family changed their last name to Cooper and didn't associate themselves with the Blossoms anymore. What's so fun about Riverdale is it's like a soap opera, You got evil twins coming back and mafias and stuff. And what's kind of fun about this, hearing about this Blossom family curse, is that we've actually seen it play out ourselves several times before hearing about it. Like Clifford, this guy's twin, Cheryl's dad, he met a very gruesome end. And then there was, of course, Cheryl. All of season 1 was about how her twin brother died a very violent and gruesome death. And now, Polly has twins with Jason Blossom, who's dead, but she's got the twins. They're alive. They've been born. And I guess that means, logically, one of those two babies probably going to kill the other baby. Anyway, we find out that this twin brother and Cheryl's mom, they're working together and they're doing something evil. He's evil. Evil guy. They're working on some goal. We don't know what that goal is, but it's very apparent that they're trying to kill Nana Blossom and Cheryl. In fact, they even drug Nana Blossom and push her down some steps. She survives, though. And then they send Cheryl away to a gay conversion camp. Speaking of which, Cheryl's kind of dating Tony Topaz, Jughead's friend. So that's cool. They're a cute couple. But yeah, so they've sent Cheryl away to this messed up camp thing. Speaking of conversion camp movies, there's a movie, Natasha Lyonne is in a movie called But I'm a Cheerleader. It's about a girl that gets sent to a gay conversion camp. It's awesome. RuPaul plays one of the camp counselors. It's hilarious. Very fun movie. Highly recommend. Anyway, Tony and Veronica work together to save Cheryl from the camp. And now Cheryl is trying to figure out what her mom and evil uncle are trying to do. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that's going on. I love this show. It has everything. It's like Twin Peaks and Smallville had a baby. It's like The Outsiders and The Sopranos had a love affair. It's like Pretty Little Liars and the movie Zodiac by David Fincher got arrested in a bar fight together. And it all brings us back to one question. Who is the Black Hood? Honestly, it would be pretty funny if the big reveal for both seasons of this show so far was just this guy. Now, granted, this is a different character than the one in the first season, but it's the same actor. You know what I mean? And that'd be really funny if they just keep bringing back this actor to be the bad guy every season. Like next season, find out they're triplets. I don't have any evidence against this guy. He just got here. I will say one thing that is interesting that happens is that Cheryl, when she brings up the fact that her great-grandfather killed the Cooper's great-great-grandfather, they were twin brothers, and she calls it Riverdale's original sin. Very interesting, because the Black Hood called the situation where the Riverdale Reaper killed that family and then the wrong guy was accused and killed, he called that Riverdale's primal sin. So there is a connection there. That is very interesting. Yeah, so it's probably not him. I don't really know who else it would be. I will say there is one other mystery on our hands, and maybe that's related, is we don't know who Chick's father is, right? We've learned that Alice had an affair with someone in high school, and that's who Chick's real father is. And Chick is a pretty creepy guy, which means that maybe his father is too. And what if Alice not only had an affair with this guy and had Chick, but what if later on in life, when Betty was born, what if Alice had cheated on Hal again with this guy, whoever he is, someone she obviously doesn't want to talk about since she hasn't brought it up. Maybe he's not even in Riverdale anymore. He comes and goes or something. I don't know. Maybe Betty is also not Hal's child. Like, what if when Betty, because she sends in her blood or whatever so that she could get the money from the Blossoms will, what if she gets back a piece of paper that says that she is not related to the Blossoms? And then she would find out that her dad is not Hal. Her real dad is the same guy as Chick's real dad. And that would explain why the Black Hood has been so obsessed with Betty. What if Chick and his real dad are working together as the Black Hood? And a pretty big storyline for Betty's character is she talks a lot about how she has a darkness inside of her. And she said when she first met Chick that she felt like Chick also had that darkness inside of him. What if that is a clue that these two characters that have a darkness inside of them are coming from the same man? A man who has darkness inside of him, the Black Hood. So I'm thinking, who is this father? Probably, it might not even be anyone we've met before. It could be one of those reveals where they take the Black Hood's mask off and everyone's like, who is this guy? And then Alice is like, Periwinkle? Because everyone in this show has a fuck-ass name. And then Betty will be like, Mom, you know this guy? And she'll be like, he's Chick's father. And your father. What? And Jughead, he'll make a face like this. He'll be like, so yeah, that's what I'm going to lock in. I'm going to lock in that the Black Hood killer is actually Chick's real father and potentially Betty's real father. I love this show. So I guess I'm going to move this to here because I'm locking in that we haven't actually met the Black Hood, like who he is yet. That's what I'm locking in, baby. Let's go watch the next few episodes.
This is your last warning.
Welcome to Carrie the Musical.
Oh my God. Well, guys, so I just watched episode 18. And I usually watch several episodes at a time, but I felt like I just needed to come right in here and start talking about this because this is quite possibly the most intense episode of Riverdale there's ever been. It's insane. It's a musical episode. And it's quite frankly the darkest episode. But the most important reason that I wanted to run back in here and talk is the Black Hood is back. And this episode really opens the door to a lot of suspects and theories for who the Black Hood could be. I genuinely kind of speechless right now. That's how intense the end of episode 18 really is. The ending of the episode is so dark and just different tonally than the rest of the show. I mean, we've seen dark things happen in this show before, Fred gets shot or even the Moose and Midge getting shot in the car. We've seen dark things happen in this show, but this was just it just felt different. So let me give you some context. All the characters, our usual gang of friends, Archie and friends, they're putting on Carrie the Musical. And, you know, all of the main characters are in Carrie the musical, including some characters that aren't main characters, right? Veronica's in there, Archie's in there, Cheryl's in there, Kevin's the director. Even Betty's mom is in the musical. Jughead is doing the behind-the-scenes documentary for the musical. Yeah, everybody's in there. Betty's in there. Everybody's in the musical. Moose, Midge, Fangs. Fangs is one of the Southside Serpents. He's in it. He's like the stage manager. Ethel. Is Ethel on the board? This is Ethel. She's kind of a reoccurring character. She's in it. That guy, Chuck, he was like a football player from last season that did some messed up things. Well, he's back and he's in the musical. But yeah, everyone's involved. And Jesus, dude, I really just thought this was gonna be like a fun filler episode because it's like a musical. Like it's not just that they're putting on a musical that makes it a musical. Like this episode in and itself is a musical. Like I just thought that this was like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing because the showrunner for Riverdale, like the guy who did Riverdale, Roberto, he actually wrote the Carrie remake from like 2013 or whatever. So I was like, oh, that's a fun little Easter egg. He's getting to kind of incorporate parts of his work previously. And then it just gets so creepy and dark at the end, much like Carrie. So here's the rundown of the episode. Cheryl is playing Carrie until Kevin, who is the director, he starts getting... Where did Kevin go? Oh, he's right here. Until Kevin starts getting letters from the Black Hood telling him that he needs to replace Cheryl as Carrie. And to like make matters worse, like Cheryl almost gets crushed by like a falling sandbag. So it's like Kevin's a little worried that this guy means business. Like they don't think it's actually the Black Hood, but there is some concern. What the group honestly thinks it's Ethel who is sending these letters saying that they need to replace Cheryl as Carrie, and they think the motive is just because Ethel wants to play Carrie. Also doesn't help her case that Jughead finds a bunch of like cut up magazine clippings in her dressing room, you know, and that's what the letters were written by for the Black Hood or whatever. They used cut out magazine clippings. So it's like, oh, it's probably just Ethel then. So Cheryl does end up getting replaced as Carrie, not because of like they think it's the Black Hood or whatever, just because Cheryl's mom shows up and is like, you do not have permission to be in this play. So now Midge is Carrie. Sorry, Ethel. The role goes to Midge. It's opening night. Betty's mom, Alice, is on the stage singing, preparing for the big moment where the curtain will be pulled back and we will see Midge as Carrie about to perform the opening number. And instead, we see Midge's body stuck to the wall with knives, blood everywhere, and a message written in Midge's blood from the Black Hood. I am back from the dead. All of those who escaped me before will die. I cannot stress to you how different this death felt compared to anything else we have seen. We've seen crazy stuff in this show, but nothing could have prepared me for when that curtain opened up, and it was just like, it was like a horror movie. And it's like, this is a teen drama on CW. And it was also something very drastic about the shift in tone of this like musical episode just coming to a halt like that. It's insane. And then the second her body's revealed and it's like, oh God, the Black Hood is here. Someone just killed Midge. I realized that the show had been like slowly setting up some serious suspects right before the reveal of her body. And so I like in hindsight remembered these little moments that I thought were a little weird, but I was like, it's a musical episode, right? Like right before we see Midge die, we see her in her dressing room with Fangs. He's the Southside Serpent. And like the door opens, and this is all from the perspective of Jughead's camera because he's doing the behind the scenes video. And so Fangs acts real awkward. He's like, oh, I'm just giving Midge some last minute notes. And I immediately assume like, oh, Fangs and Midge maybe were like a thing, right? Like she's cheating on Moose with Fangs, and that was like gonna set that up for later maybe. And then I thought I was even more justified by that because like a few seconds after that, we see Moose angrily running down the hall towards Midge's dressing room. And in my brain, I was like, oh, he found out that maybe she's cheating on him or whatever. But in reality, that gives us two major suspects for who killed Midge right off the bat, because Fangs was seen with her in her dressing room right before she died, and Moose was angrily storming towards her right before she died. But the craziest element is what it says in the message. All those who escaped me before will die. Midge and Moose were shot up by the Black Hood earlier in the season. Moose managed to kind of take all the bullets, so Midge didn't even get hit, and Moose managed to survive. But this message was essentially saying, hey, everyone that I tried to kill so far, and they managed to survive, I'm coming to finish the job. And he started with Midge, which means that Moose is up next, or even Fred Andrews. Remember, Archie's dad. This is the guy that started it all off. Archie's dad, Fred, got shot by the Black Hood. Archie himself was a victim. He tried to bury him alive, but he managed to survive. That means that he could be up on the chopping block. But this goes even deeper than that, because right before the body is revealed, we get quick shots of every character that we have ever suspected of being the Black Hood, and even some that we haven't suspected of being the Black Hood. We see the Sheriff Keller, walking around backstage right before the show starts. Betty's dad is their lives. He's back together with Alice, and we see the two of them talking right before the show starts. Hiram Lodge is in attendance, and Hiram's really upset with Archie right now because Archie essentially told Hiram to his face, hey, I'm done with this. I'm choosing my dad. And now, all of a sudden, after episodes and episodes and episodes, 8 whole episodes of not even a mention of the Black Hood, and the second that Archie stands up to Hiram, the Black Hood returns. And then, after the body is shown to everyone in the audience and everybody's freaking out and screaming and crying, there is one person sitting completely still, unbothered, and that is Chick, Betty's creepy-ass older brother, who just so happened to be backstage right before the show started. The last theory that I locked in was that Chick's real father, and potentially Betty's real father, is the Black Hood. We don't know who their real father is or who Chick's real father is, but whoever that guy is, I think could be the Black Hood. And there's some stuff that happens in this episode that leads me to believe that that theory could be accurate. Hal, he comes back home after being, kicked out for a while. And Hal is like, okay, Alice, no more secrets between us. And so Alice proceeds to tell him that Chick is not actually his son. It's someone else's son. And he says, yeah, I assumed that. That's in the past. That's okay. Now, we still do not know who Alice cheated on and birthed Chick from. But we did get a very quick romance plot between Alice and FP, that is Jughead's dad. And they had we know that they had a fling back in the day too. In fact, this could be connected actually. So Alice and FP were kind of becoming a thing real quick, and then FP kind of brushes her off. She already was having a really hard time because she feels like everyone in her life abandons her. And so that's when, she kind of goes off the deep end. And then that's when she ends up getting back together with her husband. Hal comes back. And then FP shows up to the musical that night. And I guess to kind of, support Alice and kind of make a gesture of like, hey, maybe we can be a thing. But then he sees Alice talking to her husband, and he's like, oh, they're back together. Dang. So then he seemingly leaves. But that does put FP in the theater that night, which, opens the window for him being the Black Hood, even though he was in jail for most of the beginning attacks. And while I was thinking about all of this, I realized just how much focus we have had on Betty's family this season. Like, the Black Hood was talking to Betty the whole time. He seemed obsessed with her. We've gotten all this stuff with Chick, the secret older brother. Hal ran off with Penelope Blossom for like 2 episodes. Polly had her twins and then ran off back to her cult. All of the Coopers are related to the Blossoms. And there's like, a whole fortune being split up amongst the Blossoms and the Coopers. Like, there's so much happening with this family. And that really makes me think that the Black Hood has to be related to the Coopers in some way. And I honestly think that that relation could be that the Black Hood is whoever Chick's real father is. And because Chick and Betty both talk about that darkness inside of them, I'm thinking they could share a father as well as a mother. But I do have several questions here. Like, let's start with Ethel. We see that she has cut up magazines in her trash in her dressing room. So that gives us two options. One, maybe she was telling the truth and that those cut up magazines were for her vision board. And so it's just a coincidence that the Black Hood's letters were cut up magazines. Or option two, she was the one sending the letters from the Black Hood because she wanted to be the role of Carrie. If that is true, if that option is true, then that means that the Black Hood was not actually sending those letters threatening the musical, which feels right. But what if it's option one? What if Ethel was not writing those messages from the Black Hood and the Black Hood actually was threatening to remove Cheryl from the role of Carrie? Why would the Black Hood want that? Was it because the Black Hood knew that if Cheryl was replaced as Carrie, that it would go to Midge and he could do his big crazy return reveal? I don't know. I mean, that's a big stretch that the Black Hood would know that. Like, what if the role of Carrie had gone to Ethel? Would Ethel have been the one that was killed by the Black Hood in front of everyone? I don't know if that lines up, because the Black Hood's whole message was anyone who survived me before is going down. And as far as I know, Ethel was never attacked by the Black Hood. Although, and I will say, there was one episode when Archie was doing his whole, like, I'm going to find the Black Hood thing, where Ethel said a van was following her, and then Archie showed up and, like, kind of ran the van off, and Ethel was safe. Maybe that was the Black Hood and Ethel was a potential victim, but I don't know what her, like, sin would have been. Or potentially Ethel might be in on it. We do know that a big plot line about her is that her father was kind of screwed over by Hiram Lodge, and it kind of just ruined their whole family. What if Ethel's dad is the Black Hood and Ethel is helping him to get revenge on the town? It was a pretty major plot point in this season that Ethel was very upset with Veronica, to the point where she was, like, kind of harassing Veronica, throwing stuff at her, putting out these flyers talking about all of the sins that Veronica had done. That feels very Black Hood-like. And then there's Chick. Chick is just sitting there completely creepy and unbothered as everyone's panicking over this teenage girl being put on display, you know, her dead body. I really like the theory that maybe Chick is in on the Black Hood plans with his real birth father. There was some information that we received when we first met Chick. We found out that the orphanage gave him the name and address of, you know, Alice when he turned 18. Well, maybe he also received the name and address of his real father, went off, found his real dad, and they've hatched this plan together. And then, like, I was thinking about how Betty's mom was, like, very upset about everyone leaving her, right? Polly's gone. Her and Hal were going to get divorced. You know, Chick, she had to kick Chick out the house. Like, it was just a lot. She was kind of having a breakdown to the point where she even, like, sang a song during a Carrie rehearsal that was supposed to be, you know, Carrie's mom talking about Carrie. And she just starts, crying and singing to Betty, being like, please don't leave me like everyone else has. And so I was thinking about that. And then I started thinking about how the Black Hood has this obsession with Betty. And I was like, dude, you know what's kind of interesting? The sheriff got a kind of a get out of jail free card when he shot the Black Hood and killed the Black Hood. Now, we know that that was not actually the Black Hood, but it could have been a setup where he forced this dude to dress up as the Black Hood, then Sheriff Keller shot and killed him, and then now he's like, I'm the sheriff who saved the day, I shot and killed this guy, and, you know, I saved the day, that's the Black Hood, everything's cool. If he is the Black Hood, then he essentially just, like, made it to where he'll never get caught. He'll never, like, he has officially gotten away with being the Black Hood. And it's very interesting that this happened very shortly after Betty accused Sheriff Keller of being the Black Hood, to the point where she even found a Black Hood in his office desk. He, of course, was able to explain everything away. Nobody believed Betty. But then, very shortly after, before it could even really be looked into further, the Black Hood dies. And my gears are turning, right? Because the reason I never truly felt like it could be Sheriff Keller is I couldn't figure out why Sheriff Keller would be obsessed with Betty, right? Why would he care about Betty? And now I'm really thinking. Right before Midge dies, the show makes sure that we see Sheriff Keller walking through the backstage. This episode, it felt almost self-contained. It feels like an Agatha Christie novel, right? We've got a single location. Everyone's working on this musical. We're backstage. It's like everything is chaotic because the show's about to start. We're seeing Midge talk to Fangs, and it's awkward. And then Moose is rushing backstage looking for Midge, and we see the sheriff walking around. We see Hal and Alice talking, and FP's back here, and maybe he's disgruntled. And we have Hiram Lodge, who's angry. And it's like each of these characters have a motive, and they're all right here, right before the scene of the crime. And this show is so good. Like, I've got goosebumps, dude. Like, this is such a good mystery. And I'm breaking everything down, and I'm like, okay, the sheriff this, the sheriff that, the sheriff this. But how does it connect to Betty? And then I remember Chick sitting in the... Chick shows up backstage right after we see Sheriff Keller walking around backstage. Then Chick is sitting in the audience. Everyone's freaking out and screaming, but Chick is just sitting there, silent, like he knew this was going to happen. And what I'm trying to say, guys, is what if Sheriff Keller is Chick's real father? Sheriff Keller is gray hair. Sheriff Keller. His son has black hair, so we can assume that maybe when Sheriff Keller was a little bit younger, he had dark black hair. We don't know that for sure, though. Could have been blonde, like Chick. And after I thought of that, like, everything kind of connects for it to be Sheriff Keller. He set up the janitor to be the Black Hood so that he could kill him. That guy takes the fall. He's been obsessed with Betty because Betty's secretly his child, because he's been having affairs with Alice Cooper all these years. We know that he's, open to affairs because he's been having an affair with the mayor. And then there's Chick, who just happens to show back up in town at the same time that Sheriff Keller is walking around backstage too. It just feels very perfect. And so that is what I am locking in. I'm locking in Sheriff Keller for who I think the Black Hood is. Let's go watch a few more episodes and then jump back in here.
This town needs us. It's a perfect storm.
I got this note.
You're playing a very dangerous game.
The show is so sick, dude. It's gotten insane. I just watched episodes 19 and 20. And we actually do get some pretty big answers to some questions that I've been having. And we have a major suspect for who the Black Hood might be. Let's run down some of these answers real quick that we've gotten to some pretty big questions. For example, we find out that Ethel was the one writing the letters to Kevin as the Black Hood to try to get Cheryl replaced as Carrie because she wanted the role of Carrie. Jughead and Betty start investigating Chick some more because they think that potentially Chick was working with the janitor guy and that they were the Black Hood together. And that is how we find out that Chick is not actually Betty's brother. He was roommates with Betty's brother. But then Betty's real brother died, and Chick just pretended to be him when Alice and Betty showed up looking for their, brother. What is pretty devastating about this, though, is that Chick tells them that Charles, Betty's real secret older brother, he had gone to their house one day and knocked on the door, and Alice opened the door and was like, "I'm not interested, get out of here." And apparently he was so devastated that he went out that night and overdosed on Jingle Jangle. So the news that she was responsible accidentally for her own son's death, because she didn't know that's who was at her door, sends Alice on a spiral. Alice freaks out. She runs out. She goes and visits FP, Jughead's dad, and tells him that he is the real father of Charles. And FP's like, you mean Chick? And she's like, no, Chick isn't related to us. Get with the program, FP. And so that's crazy because we just found out that FP and Alice had a kid together, which makes the secret older brother, Charles, both Betty's secret older brother and Jughead's secret older brother. They're dating, and they have a joint brother that is dead, sadly. Even crazier, we find out that that is not what happened to Betty and Jughead's secret older brother. Chick killed him. They got into an argument. He killed him. Pretty messed up stuff. Chick is crazy. So Betty gives Chick to the Black Hood. And we don't really know what happens next with Chick. Either the Black Hood caught him and killed him, or Chick managed to get away. All we know is we saw him running off into the dark. Who knows? Who cares? We find out that Moose was running towards Midge's dressing room right before the play started because he found out that she was cheating on him with a serpent. That serpent, of course, being Fangs. Which, you know, we kind of saw that coming. I will point out, pretty fucked up of Midge to cheat on Moose after he took a bunch of bullets for her, protecting her. So yeah, that's a lot of the answers that we got. Now, let's start breaking down all of the things that the Black Hood does in these 2 episodes. So, as you know, the Black Hood killed Midge, and that set off all kinds of stuff. Like, Sheriff Keller is getting harassed by everyone in the town for, you know, sucking at his job. And so they're asking him to resign. That opens the door for the lodges to put one of their goons in as the sheriff of Riverdale. The whole town is going crazy, and they're out for blood, including Archie, who still wants to find the Black Hood and kill him for shooting his dad. So Archie's going door to door, just looking into men's eyes to see if it looks like the Black Hood's eyes. And it gets even worse when the Black Hood puts a note on Fred and Archie's front door that says, "Your next sinner." Which, as we know, the Black Hood left a message when he killed Midge, being like, I'm taking out everybody who managed to get away from me last time. And Fred survived when the Black Hood shot him, so makes sense that he's up to bat. Then there's a mayoral debate, right? The 2 candidates for mayor of Riverdale are debating, and that would be Fred versus Hermione. Because of the threat made on Fred's life on the note on his front door, they decide they're going to beef up security at the debate, but keep it happening. Turns out the extra security didn't work because the Black Hood shows up and just starts blasting. It's pretty insane, and we'll break down why this, the shooting of the mayoral debate is so important for us in particular. We'll break that down in a little bit, but first, there's one last thing that happens that I'm not sure if the Black Hood is involved with or not. Because of the footage that Jughead had of Fangs and Midge in the dressing room together right before her death, Fangs becomes the #1 suspect. He gets arrested. The whole town thinks it's him. That works with the whole North Side narrative that everything that bad happens is because of the South Side or a South Sider or a South Side serpent. And so, well, anyway, Fangs manages to go free, like they can't pin it on him. But the town is rioting, like literal riots happening outside the sheriff's station as Fangs is leaving. And you know, all the serpents, FP, Jughead, they're trying to protect Fangs and get him safely away from the station. But then Hiram Lodge has been manipulating Reggie. Reggie is kind of a reoccurring character throughout the show. He's on the football team with Archie. And he's actually been manipulating Reggie to start doing his dirty work the same way he was Archie. And so Reggie shows up, everybody's rioting, with a gun. He goes to shoot Fangs, but luckily Archie clocks it, runs over there, tackles him right before a gunshot goes off. Fangs has been shot. Now, I do not know if when Archie tackled Reggie, the gun went off and shot Fangs. I don't know if it was them. I don't know if it was someone else entirely, potentially the Black Hood. Or it could have just been another person at the riots or something. I don't know. So yeah, that's the last thing that may or may not have to do with the Black Hood. But this brings us to the most important thing that has been happening in these 2 episodes. And it gives us a pretty big choice that we have to make, a big decision. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm a little freaked out because there's a lot of pressure that I've put on myself to try and solve this mystery. And we've been handed a very big suspect. And that suspect is Betty's father. Betty starts becoming suspicious of her own father, Hal, after she gives Chick to the Black Hood. When she left her house with Chick at gunpoint to take him to the Black Hood to be killed, I guess. Betty was in a dark place. She left the house. Her mom and dad were talking. They were together. But when Betty gets back, it's just her mom. And she goes, "Where's dad?" And Alice goes, "Oh, he went looking for you." And that makes her feel suspicious because she's like, oh, my dad happened to leave right when I was going to visit the Black Hood. It makes her kind of suspicious. So she goes to Cheryl. And she goes and talks to Cheryl because she's like, Cheryl will understand because her dad was the big bad guy from the mystery last season. So the two of them are working together to investigate Betty's dad. Betty goes through her dad's calendar. And he is conveniently, suspiciously away every single time the Black Hood attacked someone. So then Betty kind of opens up to her parents to see if maybe her dad will lead on to something. So gives them a little bit of information that would make him seem suspicious. She tells them about her calls with the Dark Hood, and she tells them about the darkness inside of her. And her dad says, "Betty, I experience it too. The darkness." It's pretty suspicious, especially when the camera pushes in at the same moment, after he says that, on Hal's eyes. And we see that they're the same bright green eyes as the Black Hood. So Betty and Cheryl break into Hal's share B&B, which is where he was staying while he was kicked out of the house. He's been paying for it this whole time. And so they go and they search the place and they find the Nancy Drew secret code book, the one that the Black Hood used to create the cipher that Betty was the one that solved, right? Only Betty would have been able to solve it because the Black Hood somehow knew that Betty checked out that book obsessively as a child. So now Betty is really certain that her dad is the Black Hood. Why else would Hal have that book? But then something insane happens. The shooting at the mayoral debate. The Black Hood is up on the balcony shooting at Fred and Hermione. And where is Hal? Right there with Betty, trying to make sure she's okay, like covering her up. So he can't be the Black Hood. So Betty goes and talks to him, kind of confronts him, goes, "Hey, what are you doing? Me and Cheryl broke into your share B&B and I found this Nancy Drew code book. What were you doing with it?" And he was like, "I found it out at the store. I bought it for you as an early birthday present. Like I was going to save it for your birthday." She's not buying it. I'm kind of buying it. And then something pretty crazy happens at the very end of the episode 20. Right after Betty had told her dad that her and Cheryl broke into his share B&B, Cheryl opens the door to her house. Someone knocked on the door. She opens the door. It's the Black Hood trying to kill her. And that's where the episode ends. So I don't even know. Cheryl could be dead for all I know. For those of you that are watching this video that have already watched Riverdale, and you're like, Cheryl's dead and he has no idea. Don't let this happen to me. Don't let this happen to me. So that leads us to our big decision that we need to make right now. We have to decide, is Hal just one giant red herring right before the big reveal? Because there's only 2 episodes left in the season. Right, which means that we're probably going to get the reveal of who the Black Hood is in the next 2 episodes. Last season, we got the reveal in episode 21, which means that we could get the reveal in the next episode. Is this one last giant red herring to try to distract us from the actual Black Hood? Or could it just be him? Honestly, it would be kind of poetic if the 2 big whodunit killers for the last 2 seasons happened to be the 2 descendants, well, he's not on the board, but here's his twin brother, the 2 descendants of the Blossom family, the Blossom family curse. Remember, because the Coopers and the Blossoms are the same family, riddled with a blood feud for generations. And I don't understand why Hal would do all of these things that the Black Hood has done. Why does he care about shooting Fred because he's dating Hermione Lodge? Why does he care if Moose and Midge hooking up at Lover's Lane. Like, it just doesn't make any sense why he would care about all that. And like, it would also be extremely hypocritical if he shoots Fred for dating Hermione Lodge when him and his wife, when she kicked him out of the house, he starts hooking up with Penelope Blossom. Unless I'm missing like a really big obvious plot point or clue, I just don't understand why it would be him, why he would care about any of that. My theory that I locked in last time of it being Sheriff Keller and that he was actually Chick's real father and potentially Betty's real father doesn't work anymore because we learned, FP is Chick's real father. Well, not Chick. Chick isn't even related to them, but, Charles, the real secret older brother. This is so complicated. But even though that motive doesn't work, what does work is during the mayoral, debate shooting, we see Hal. We see him with Betty. You know who we don't see? Sheriff Keller, because he has been forced out of his position as sheriff. He's nowhere to be found. And I honestly think maybe the motive that we talked about what feels like an eternity ago in this video is that he wants to clean up Riverdale on his own terms. We don't know a lot about this character, yet he is in almost every single episode, even season 1. We saw him all throughout, but yet we know almost nothing about him. We know stuff about Hal. We've seen many storylines with this guy. We have not seen many with this one. And so I really think that it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Sheriff Keller is the Black Hood. But there is one major issue with that theory, and that issue is the killing of Midge and the Black Hood's return is what forced the town against Sheriff Keller and got him kicked out of his job. Why would he do that to himself? He had it all wrapped up in a nice little bow when this guy, the janitor, was killed, dressed as the Black Hood, and took the blame. And then I have to force myself to remember the other whole side of this story. Although this video is about figuring out the mystery of the Black Hood, there is so much other stuff that happens. And that big theme, the big plot on the other side of this story is all about Hiram Lodge building his empire in Riverdale. He owns everything. He owns the diner. He owns the Southside High property. He owns the Riverdale Register newspaper. He owns everything, and it's building up, and he's winning. He's gonna rule Riverdale, turn it into a prison town, unless something happens and someone stops him. But what could possibly stop him? What is the resolution to this giant story of Hiram's building of his empire? Unless, of course, we find out, and everyone finds out, that the Black Hood was a creation of Hiram Lodge. Here is my theory. I think that Hiram Lodge may have paid Sheriff Keller an insane amount of money to do all of this. He wants the chaos. He wants the riots. I mean, it's crazy out there in Riverdale right now. And that would explain why Sheriff Keller is okay with losing out his job of sheriff, by coming back and killing Midge as the Black Hood. Because he's got so much money, he doesn't need that job anymore. And then I'm like, okay, but I still don't understand why he would be obsessed with Betty. Why is the Black Hood obsessed with Betty? And, it's kind of mentioned several times throughout this season that Betty is the one who is able to stop all of the bad guys. She solved the whole mystery of season 1. She figured out who the Sugar Man was in this season. Like, she is good at what she does, investigative journalism. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe he's not obsessed with her in any other way than he knows that if he wants to get something done, Betty is a very efficient way of doing it. She is very good at what she does. So this is my choice. I can either go with the safe bet, lock in Betty's dad, and potentially get the buzzer beater win. I solved the season, right? Or I can roll the dice, take a gamble, be like, you know what? I think that's just a big red herring. I think the show's trying to trick me one last time before the reveal, and I can lock in Sheriff Keller again. That's my decision. That's my options. Hal has the bright green eyes. He's got a similar head shape to the Black Hood, but it feels very heavy-handed. It feels like the show has given us so much to be like, look at Hal, look at Hal, look at Hal, especially that close-up shot. They did the close-up shot of his green eye, matching the green eye of the Black Hood. And also, Also, we see him. We see him at the same time as the Black Hood at the mayoral debate. I'm gonna roll the dice, dude. I would, if I locked in Hal because it's what the show was making it obvious and I lost, I would feel terrible. But if I make the gamble and if I play it risky and I manage to get that right, that's gonna be epic. And if I'm wrong, so be it. At least I took a risk. So I'm sticking with my guns. I'm locking in Sheriff Keller once again for who I think is the Black Hood.
You were in on this?
Surprise! The ghoulies outnumber us 100 to 1.
If we're going down, we're going down fighting.
Well, guys, I just watched episode 21 of Riverdale, and we got the big reveal of who the Black Hood is. Also, I really wish I would have thought this through. I bought this Southside Serpent jacket for the video because last video I did the Archie costume the whole time, and I thought it'd be fun to do Jughead this time. And then I remembered, you can't, my back is not ever really facing you guys. So it just kind of looks like I'm just wearing a regular leather jacket. But, you know, still sick, you know? Yes, the Black Hood was revealed to be Betty's dad. I should have just locked that in. I thought the show was making it too obvious, but, you know, it makes sense. It makes sense. I was like, my big selling point for like, it can't be him is because we saw him at the same time as the Black Hood when the mayoral debate was getting shot up by the Black Hood. And, well, there's a good reason for that. So Hal is the Black Hood. He did all of the things that Black Hood did, you know, shot Fred, shot Moose and Midge, killed Midge, you know, all that stuff. The one thing that he did not do is shoot up the mayoral debate. That was somebody else. And even crazier, while we are watching Hal give his big villain speech to Betty and Alice, his wife and daughter, we see another Black Hood show up at Archie's house and shoot Fred again. This time he was wearing a bulletproof vest, though, so he's aight. Which means that we have one more mystery to solve this season. There's only one episode left of the season. Who is this other Black Hood that shot Fred and shot up the mayoral debate? And we'll get to that in a minute. First, let me tell you about Hal being the Black Hood. Turns out Hal's dad was the Riverdale Reaper, the one that killed the Conway family, where this little boy, he doesn't look like a little boy here, when he was little, his family got killed by the Riverdale Reaper. He managed to survive. That was Hal's dad who did that. Turns out the Conway family, the dad of the Conway family, knew the Cooper family's secret. So Hal's dad went and killed their whole family. The secret being, you know, we've heard this legend several times at this point about how the Coopers and the Blossoms are the same family. It was great-grandpappy Blossom and his twin brother. He killed his twin brother, so that side of the family changed their last name to Cooper and divided themselves. Well, we found out that that is not the truth. In fact, it is the inverse. Double G Pappy Cooper killed Double G Pappy Blossom and changed his last name to Cooper to like make his own name for himself. And Hal shows us this like creepy ass home videotape of Hal when he was a baby. Well, not a baby, like a toddler, not even a toddler, like 8 years old probably. Where his mom is like brainwashing him into going and convincing the little Conway boy to point out the wrong killer. This is what, when we're watching the home video, this is what his mom is saying. Your daddy did something very noble, Harold. He took care of that Conway family. They were sinners. And what happens to sinners? And little boy Hal is like, sinners have to die. So he's a part of this weird, fucked up family that has this tradition of killing people who are justified sinners. And when Betty's speech at the Jubilee actually used some of the same words that Hal's mom's like brainwashing speech used, I think it just like kind of triggered something in his head, and he was just like, whoa, back to that psychopathic behavior that he was kind of brainwashed as a child into believing. And like Alice even points out like how hypocritical the whole thing is, because she's like, dude, you shot Fred Andrews for being an adulterer. You slept with Penelope Blossom while we were married. It gets him pretty angry. He starts strangling Alice, and then that opens up the window for Betty to grab like a shovel and just like beat him in the back of the head. He's knocked out. He gets arrested. So the big mystery's over. I did not solve it. We came close. Like, we were in the right ballpark pretty much this whole episode. We were circling Sheriff Keller, Hal Cooper, Hiram Lodge. Like, we were in the window. I mean, it does kind of suck that it was practically served up on a platter for me. All I had to do is be like, sure, lock it in. And then technically I would have gotten the dub. But, you know, we still have one more chance for redemption. We still have to find out who the second Black Hood is that shot up the mayoral debate and shot Fred for the second time. My last locked-in pick for who was the Black Hood was Sheriff Keller. So I think it's only fair that I don't get to like lock in a different pick. I think we're going to play it like this. If next episode it's revealed that that second Black Hood is Sheriff Keller, then we're going to count this as a dub for me because I technically was correct. But before we go and watch episode 22, let's just do like a quick rundown of some pretty cool stuff that happened in this episode. Because the show is awesome. It's like a comic book. It's a full-on comic book universe at this point, which makes sense because Archie, it's Archie Comics. But it's like Gotham City out here in Riverdale. Riots are going crazy. They're burning this place to the ground. We've got biker gangs and mob bosses. Cheryl Blossom is just running around town in like a red cape with a bow and arrow, just taking motherfuckers out. Basically everything that has been set up in this season all starts happening all at once in this episode. The Ghoulies, who are like the rival biker gang for the Serpents, they're back in town. There's a character called the Snake Charmer who has kind of been Jughead's nemesis all season. She's back in town. Jughead ends up having to kind of sacrifice himself in order to keep the rest of the Serpents safe and alive. Like he makes a deal with Hiram Lodge, and so it's Jughead versus 30 Ghoulies, and they pretty much beat him almost to death. There's this pretty intense scene where FP is carrying Jughead's just like limp body out of the darkness, and it's brutal. It's really, really sick though. Really sick shot. Fangs, remember Fangs got shot. I found out that it was not Archie or Reggie when they were tackled with the gun. They didn't shoot him. Black Hood didn't shoot him. Midge's mom, who was so upset about her daughter being killed the way that she was, obviously, she shot Fangs. So she's going to jail for that. Do you remember a while ago I mentioned that Archie warned Hiram about this rival gangster that was kind of out to get him, so they had him killed? Well, his name was Papa Poutine. And his son shows up in Riverdale that same night looking for revenge on Hiram by killing Veronica and Hermione. But Hermione, kind of a gangster, shot and killed him. Pretty crazy stuff. What's pretty insane is that like the reason that all of Riverdale is falling apart on this night is because Hiram has been puppet mastering for this exact thing to happen for months and months. Riverdale is going to burn to the ground, and then he will rebuild it in the way that he wants. And it pretty much works, aside from the fact that his wife and daughter are pretty much done with him. This episode sees them pretty much, be like, we're done here. I'm really excited to see how this whole season culminates in the last episode. So, yeah, let's go see if we can snag that dub last second in episode 22. Worst case, this has still been a great season of Riverdale. I've had a blast. Let's go watch episode 22.
Tell him your secrets.
I am not like you.
Aren't you? I'm gonna make my bones once and for all.
Well, turns out the other Black Hood was a character named Tall Boy, which is a Southside Serpent that we kind of met a while ago. So not Sheriff Keller. So that sucks. So might as well put this one in the L category, boys and girls. Speaking of which, has anybody even kept track? Like, I really am curious. What is my win to loss ratio for when it comes to solving mysteries? I'm gonna do some research. I'll let you guys know. I'm gonna look into it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Let me know down in the comments if there is a mystery in season 3 of Riverdale that I can try to solve. If so, I'll definitely be making a video on that. I love watching this show and making videos on it. I would like to thank Casetify once again for sponsoring this video. I love their cases. Links down below for Patreon. All right, dope.